pretty bad was actually probably the most difficult. So I suppose if I was going with my good luck, you had Limerick in the All-Ireland, just even being able to be there, witness them, just the display they put on was incredible. The food at Croke Park in the All-Ireland wasn't too bad. Have to mention that.
What was on the menu?
That day it was hot food that day. So normally you get like the soup and sandwich, which is pretty good. But we had rice, chicken and veg that day. So yeah, me and Tommy Walsh were loving it that day, the simple things. And then obviously just traveling around the country. But if I was going to go into detail with a little bit different than probably what people see, for me, I think the number one highlight was probably the chats that I got to have with the different pundits and that came alongside me. So there was some brilliant greats, really. You know, we had Michael Meehan from Galway, Tommy Walsh, absolute character. He gives you a great insight into the game. You know, he'd be telling you a lot about Tullerone. The few times he'd be getting calls from he trains the under-8.
The under-8.
Yeah. So halfway through the games, he'd be getting calls, and he'd be really wanting to know, updates on the lads, how are they getting on, his son was playing. So yeah, brilliant stuff like that. Also then the Cavan manager, Mickey Graham, Enda McGinley, and then Declan Bonner. And I think the funny thing that all of them had in common, I played out in New York, football out there, and all of them had connections out there. And it's so funny, all of our conversations just sort of related back to that. And Enda, his brother Ronan was out in New York. We were at the same club out there, Cavan, New York. So we had great chats over that. And then Declan Bonner was just sort of telling me about when he was a sanction. So a sanction, if people don't know what that is, out in New York is where you go out at the weekend. So you can play with your club back home here in Ireland, and then you're brought out at the weekend. So he was telling me all the stories of years ago when him and a few of the lads on the Donegal team would be brought out there to play, and they'd spend weekends out there. So you sort of get to chat away to them and things they mightn't say to you when you have the camera on in front of their face.
That's the good stuff. That's the good stuff, Ashley. Yeah. That's what we need to get the mic on for. And by the way, I should welcome our audience, even though we're 6 or 7 minutes into the show, who've just been able to hear us over the last few minutes. So welcome to everybody. I know it wasn't on all platforms, but anybody who was not been able to tune into us this morning, and plenty of the feedback on YouTube this morning as well. So good morning to everybody on that front. So is that the end of your good stuff? Because I mean that was pretty good.
No, that was only one.
Okay,
that was one. So I'll go quicker then. My second one was covering the Ulster Championship as a whole. Just the way it was so hard hitting, It was intense, competitive. Probably the game that stands out in my mind from that championship would be the Donegal and Derry in the Ulster quarter-final. So it was when Donegal was 16 points, Derry 15 points. And that was Derry's for the taking that day. I just thought that, Conor Glass, he was a standout player for them. I think we need to watch out for him next year. I think we need to watch out for Derry next year. And that's something I wouldn't have said in previous years. So they have a great club championship, but you never really see them when it comes to the county really contesting. So that was my second one. My third one then was the rise of the Meath ladies. I'll not go into too much detail. I've spoke about it enough, but I had to put them in there just as the whole way through, from beating Armagh to Cork, and then obviously to Trump and Dublin in the final was something else.
And winning it, playing good football as well, actually. I started tuning into them maybe, certainly not at the start, but a bit later on in the championship, and was really taken aback by how quickly they've got up to speed with playing senior football, and how just a lovely, lovely style of football. And it's sort of with that, you kind of expect at some point or another that that they might come short, but you didn't feel like that. I think we could take your Astradamus predictions now. Let's strap that into the chat.
And that's the difference with this Tyrone team, I think, that we haven't seen maybe in previous years, because in that last quarter, seeing Colin McShane, Conor McKenna, Tiernan McCann, these players that will be starting, as you said, you're probably in the next game or so, but having them come off the bench, I was speaking to Kieran McGeary after the game, and he said, it was dire conditions, it was baking hot, and he said he just looked over at the subs coming on and he's seen these lads and he just said, thank God, and he said, we haven't had that. This is new for us.
Give us your prediction.
It's hard because you have to go with your head and not your heart, and I suppose what my head is telling me is that Royals are going to do it.
They laughed you out of town.
They did laugh me out of town. So I made sure when I went on the next day, I had my Meath top on, and I made sure the first thing I said was, "You did not believe me. You laughed at me. You laughed in my face."
And come here, are they're around to stay, Aisling? Obviously, like, this is not the structures are in place. Like when you see how quickly they came from intermediate up to senior, and they go ahead and like win the ultimate prize, there can be a bit of a flash in the pan aspect to victories like that at times. But I presume your feeling is that the structures are in place, and that this team and young team that they're around. Meath football is here to stay, I presume, is your wish anyway, but in reality could actually happen.
Yeah, in reality, absolutely. Like, we seen when they were in the intermediate final for 3 years in a row that they lost the first two. You know, they were trying to get to grips with positions, with how they played, all of that sort of thing. And we seen then when they won that intermediate final that, okay, they have a bit more of a type of play here that is really unique to them. And then they went on and sort of developed that through the senior championship. And I think they're not surprising they did it this year, but I suppose Eamon Murray, the manager, and that he would even say, you know, God, I didn't think I'd find myself in this position now. I thought it might be in a year or two. So I just think they're developing more and more. And something they've on their side as well is the age profile of all the girls. I think there's only maybe 1 or 2 girls that are in their 30s, like 30 and 31. The rest are all in their early 20s. Or late 20s, maybe 1 or 2, but majority of them are in their early 20s, if not even 20 yet. So yeah, I think it's definitely not a flash in the pan. We'll see them for years to come. Yeah,
something they share with Tyrone and that age profile as well. Are we at the end of your what was great list?
We're at the end of the great
list. We asked you to pick 3 bad and you were struggling.
I was struggling, and I hope that doesn't seem lazy, but I just genuinely was racking my head and I couldn't really think of too many bad. But I suppose I put it down to maybe more the tough aspects of the job is how I would see it. So obviously now you have stadiums, some of them like literally no Wi-Fi. I went to Tuam and Galway. That was good crack. It's something else, that stadium. But I wouldn't say it was a bad thing, because I was delighted to say I've been to Tuam Stadium. Then I suppose for me the tough aspects of the job then, so yeah, I find it particularly tough when you're interviewing, I suppose, the losing manager. I know it comes with the job, but it's very hard when I suppose you know what it feels like. If anyone played sport, you know what it's like when you lose a big game and you're then throwing the microphone in their face. So yeah, that's tough. I suppose one that sticks out in my mind is the Monaghan manager, Banty. You know, when they lost the Ulster finals to Tyrone, it wasn't long after the death of Ogie Duffy, and you know, he's very emotional. He just spoke how proud he was of the lads and of what a young man Ogie was as well, and that was particularly tough when I think back. And then also as well, probably the Dublin women's boss McBowen, after their loss to Meath. God, if you haven't heard that interview, definitely have a listen back. He was just very choked up. You know, difficult to get his words out. Just speaking about what the players have done for him more than what he's done for them, and almost getting the sense that this was the end is what I was getting from it. I didn't ask the question. I didn't feel it was the time, to be honest, but those are probably the tough aspects of the job, rather than bad things.
Yeah, listen, it's a tough stage to be at, and it's a high wire act in terms of which side of it you end up, and it wasn't for Dublin that year, this year, and good to, like, the national broadband plan needs a kick up the arse, Aisling, as well. So I think that's the point about June. Get it sorted, lads. We'll get that fixed right. That's Aisling's 3 good, 3 bad, and that is the show underway. As I said, we had a few technical hitches to begin, but we're up and running, and we're live across all the usual off the ball social channels. So do keep your comments coming into us over the course of the morning. We have an absolutely stacked show for you between now and 10 a.m. this morning. Here's a bit of a flavour of what it's all about. Mark Lawrenson is standing by. We're going to talk to Mark in just a couple of moments' time. There's obviously plenty of Liverpool chat to be had, and lots across the back pages this morning as well, in relation to the football. So we'll get Mark's thoughts on all of that. We will tell you what's happening on the back pages as well just after 8 this morning. We'll speak to Aoibheann Leahy. We've just been chatting there about Meath's great success, and she was a big part of that. So we're going to speak to Aoibheann just at 8:15 this morning. It's been obviously a couple of weeks of celebration, no doubt, for the Meath players. So we'll have plenty of chat on that. Nicci Daly, who you might know as an international hockey player, also has a monster interest, and why wouldn't she, given her lineage, in motorsport, and has launched a brand new project that you'll want to hear all about. That's at 8:30 this morning. Following on from that, we'll have a bit more Celtic chat. Aisling picking over the bones of last night's defeat. Enda Coll is going to join us as well for that. Alan Quinlan, it's our first, certainly my first chat with him as the start of the rugby season approaches, and again lots to get into there, including the post-mortem after the Connacht saga continues. An IRFU investigation is launched, and the players continue to make their point about why facilities weren't up to scratch. We get Quinny's thoughts on that, and also the United Rugby Championship and a few more bits and bobs as well. We'll have with Quinny, and then John Giles from the show last night in conversation with Nathan. So all that's coming your way between now and 10 a.m. this morning. We do want to hear your thoughts on whether it's the GEA, and there's lots of interesting stories there, including Cyril Farrell calling for Joe Canning to return. He's only just retired, but calling for Joe Canning to return to the Galway hurling team. So we'll see how that pans out. I'll bring you those couple of little pearls of quotes as well from Cyril. So we'll bring you those during the papers this morning. But we mentioned Mark Lawrenson to pick over the bones of the football this week and look ahead a little bit as well to the weekend. Mark, I believe, is standing by. Good morning to you, Mark.
Morning. All good?
All is good, and thanks Millie for jumping on the line this morning. The football is we're in a good position, Mark, at the end of the week, where we've had a big European week. We've had fans back, and not every ground full, obviously. We might get into that in a minute, but Anfield particularly during the week. Will you talk to us a bit about that? The fans back, full voice, and it really felt like proper European night with full stadium. Was really back on the agenda for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Anfield, and probably a bit like Old Trafford, is it's just completely different with supporters back. And I know everyone says, well, every ground's going to be like that. But as you will know as well, with some of the games that we've seen with Liverpool over many, many years, European nights under the floodlights, it just gives you that, as a player, it just gives you that kind of extra oomph, for want of a better description. And obviously, I mean, it was a good game, and it's a good win for them, and it's just a massive thing. I mean, we keep going on about the pandemic and stuff, but it's just completely different when you think about, say, Wednesday night and the atmosphere and the way that Liverpool played, etc., and then think about when we saw all those games in the pandemic when there was nowhere in the stadium. That difference is, well, it's gigantic for me, certainly, and it makes, as I say, a big difference for players.
With them going 2-1 down, Mark, and like it could have been actually 3-1 at one point, barring that offside. Klopp said after the game that he saw the we saw the Milan goals coming. We weren't organised defensively. Is that all just out of the equation and fixed once Van Dijk is back in? Is it as simple as that, or is there something a bit more deep-rooted about it?
No, I think it's as simple as that, because I think in his position, I don't know of anybody who's better in the world, which is a statement in itself. So no, it does, and it's like anything. It's, you'd argue that he's probably the player that Liverpool cannot do without. I mean, people would throw a case in for Salah, etc., and quite rightly, but it just makes such a massive difference. He makes a massive difference who plays alongside him. Makes a massive difference for the goalkeeper, all those kind of things. And I mean, percentage-wise, if he doesn't play, you always feel like it's almost like 50% difference. And I think what happens then is that players who come in as well and play and know that someone plays in his position, and he knows that basically as soon as Van Dijk's, fit and available, he's not going to be in the team. So yeah, it's just massive, and I mean, everyone knows the story about having, waiting for him to sign for Liverpool, a bit like with Alisson, the goalkeeper, as well. And you can understand what Klopp's saying. Klopp's never going to say, "Oh yeah, well, without Virgil, we're not the same." I mean, he can't, because it's a negative, but that's exactly what it is. Yeah,
everybody watching on knows it, and it'll be interesting to see another former Celtic player lit it up last weekend, Edouard, and they'll come up against Palace this weekend. You presume off the back of his goals that he goes in, and you presume that Van Dijk starts as well. But like a lot of the debate Mark, over the last week or so about Trent Alexander-Arnold. I'm sure you followed it, whether he's the best right back in the world or he's not, or if he's a bit detached almost from his defensive duties. I guess that's the main thing that people who are sort of counter to that argument say. You're grimacing even as I say that.
Well, yeah, well, it's also like when Southgate played him in midfield, and you know, I think I've been on before and saying it's a completely different mindset for like a fullback, an attacking fullback, to go and play in midfield, because if you play in midfield, you know, you're on the half turn a lot of the time, because you're obviously playing directly against an opponent who might, you know, want to run past you all the time, all those kind of things. And it is different. I mean, Klopp basically put Southgate away, didn't he? Sort of saying, well, what are you playing him there for? And I don't know of a better right back in the world. And I think you can always improve defensively. He's not bad. He's just not a world-class defender, but he's a world-class fullback going forward, and he makes such a difference to that team. And I think it's just the system completely. It's like his mate, his buddy on the left, Robertson. And if you watch Liverpool play, you know, the front three, certainly the wide players in inverted commas, you know, Salah and Mane, they just tuck in. And, you know, these two guys just are allowed to basically, pardon the pun, zoom past them all the time. And once you're in that team and you know this is how the team functions, everybody else basically, so, you know, you're left with your two centre-backs at the back, probably marking one, and you might have a central midfield player in front of them, and everybody piles forward, and his crossing ability is as good as anything I've seen. Would you be old enough to remember Manny Callas?
I might be old enough, I suspect, but I don't. The name doesn't ring a bell.
Right, German international, and he was the first real, I think, outstanding right back who just kept bending all these crosses in with pace, and you know, everyone sort of went, "Wow, look at this!" And I think the man's up there with him now. He is that good, and of course he's quick, and that's the other thing as well. Even defensively, if you're quick, you can always make a mistake, but you can always recover, which is important.
But as important as it is, I suppose, on the ball, we know how good he is on the ball, but is it not so important to get back, to filter back, to do that tough, hard work? Is that what he's lacking?
No, I think he gets back. I think it's just a little bit sort of, look, as a defender, you know, you've got to stop people playing. That's part and parcel of it. But he just enjoys this thing about going forward, and he gives so much to the team that, you know, you always get the sense when he's running back, he's thinking, "Oh, crikey, I've got to go run back now and do that mundane thing of marking somebody." Of marking somebody and maybe like taking the ball off him, which is probably why Robertson is better defensively than Trent, because he actually likes tackling and he's Scottish and he's got a bit of grit there, hasn't he? And that's the way that he is. But I always get the feeling with Trent, it's like, "Oh, I've got to run back all that way. I just want to play down here and make chances and score and all that, and all those kind of things." He plays like the kid in the park, you know.
Exactly.
And so you're at school and you're the best player in your team, and you just want to be everywhere and you want to be involved. But he's just a tough, and you forget how relatively young he is as well, and his experience for a lad of his age is massive.
And I mean, John Giles was on with us last night, and he was basically saying that he's a liability in defence. Now look at it. It sounds like you're probably saying, I mean, I don't think you're quite that extreme about it, but people just need to accept that is a frailty in his game, and that the trade-off is one worth paying.
Yeah, absolutely is. And I mean, you know what Klopp's like, and Klopp absolutely hates anything of the fact that, you know, if somebody thinks that he's got a weakness in the team. If Klopp had a real problem with him defensively, we'd all know. And, you know, we'd probably say, "Oh, he doesn't get forward as much," which would mean the manager saying to him, "Look, you know, you just sometimes got to sit in a little bit and do your bit defensively." I just think Klopp's one of those he just knows he's got an absolutely brilliant player going forward. I get John, and I get what he's saying, but all he's doing, he's playing to his strengths. Why would you play to his weaknesses?
You mentioned Salah a bit earlier on. That contract situation obviously is ongoing. I presume in those conversations, Mark, he's saying, listen, I'm the main man here and I don't care what you're paying anybody else, but I am the main man, and you need to reflect that on the paycheck, and that he needs to flex that. Or what's your sense of how all this gets wrapped up? Well, I mean, you don't know what's going on inside his head, do you? You don't know whether he's thinking, I'm going to have one last move. He's had some outstanding moves, as everybody knows, and he's made bundles of money. I mean, I don't think particularly, while it is an issue, money still isn't an issue, if you know what I mean. But he might be just playing it cool, letting his agent deal with it, and all the time he's thinking, well, you know what, I want to finish my career in Barcelona or PSG or wherever. So we're not exactly sure that the machinations within his head, but you get the impression that he thinks and believes he's the best player that Liverpool have. But maybe everyone else thinks, well, actually, he's probably the second player at the moment, second best player, Van Dijk. So, hey, it's one of those. I mean, if you remember, and you know what the papers are like, especially in England, and it was, Henderson's not signed a contract, and they're not doing this and not doing that, and then the next thing he's signed. They're not daft, these fellas, who sort this out. So, remains to be seen. I mean, they've cashed in before, they've cashed in on many occasions. Torres, Suarez, all those kind of Coutinho, all those kind of players. And while supporters are like, we can't let him go, we can't do this and we can't do that, who knows what Klopp's got up his sleeve? They'll have a plan A, B, C and D, I would have thought, because that's the thing about Michael Edwards at the football club. He's been brilliant in terms of recruitment. So, I don't know, I think it's a case of watch this space, isn't it? Yeah. That mindset of I'm the best player in the world, all Liverpool fans want until it comes to a contract negotiation, and then it's like, listen, absolutely, you just want the crowd. Shut up, get on with it. Just a small bit of a stock take. Like, we're not much into the season, right? Like 4 games of the Premier League, obviously European week under us, and I sort of want, it's a small sample size, admittedly, right? But I wanted to sort of get a sense of your power ranking. And sorry, Rafa, but we're leaving you out of this one. Your power ranking of what we would consider to maybe be the top 4 strongest team in it, and their managers particularly, Mark. So a power ranking of where you see Solskjaer, Klopp, Pep and Tuchel, in what order you see them, and a bit of a mark your card one. Right, so I'll go Solskjaer 4th, and I think that Tuchel is 1st, and then you've probably got a toss-up between Pep and obviously Klopp for 2nd and 3rd. I mean, Chelsea look to me as though they're going to be the best team in terms of not playing particularly well in games, but winning. I think they just got that. And it's a lot to do, obviously, with the manager and the way he's set them up, etc. City will, destroy teams for fun. I think they've scored 16 goals in 3 home games so far. And and Liverpool are up there as well. But I mean, if you gave me £100 to say, who do you think will win the league now? My money would go on Chelsea. But then, of course, Lukaku, if he falls over for 2 or 3 months, it completely changes. Yeah, the Solskjaer being last obviously will tickle, I'm sure, a lot of United fans watching in. Is that based on the young boys stuff during the week, or like what are your? No, I think that's just on the fact that these other guys have managed hundreds of games already, and I still think with Ole Gunnar, he's still in a way learning the job. And I think also probably still doesn't know what his best team is. There's always that thing about where does Pogba play, etc. And I know obviously we've had the Ronaldo weekend, and he scored midweek as well. So he's obviously going to be a really, really good player for them. I just think that Solskjaer's not quite there yet. Will he ever get there, Mark? It feels like a never-ending conversation about him, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, so the argument is this. So he'll say Manchester United have got better every season as he's been the manager. Yeah, absolutely.
the only thing is they spent like hundreds of millions of pounds just to get better. They haven't spent hundreds of million pounds to be the top team. And I think everybody in football looks at them and just thinks, oh, on any given day, they can destroy teams. But they still, even with, Varane in the team, etc., they still look like they've got a little bit of a weakness. And I think, just as we've spoken about Tuchel with Chelsea saying they can play poorly and win against any team, I don't think Manchester United can play poorly and win against any team. That's the difference.
Is that based on Solskjaer?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, listen, we know it's a massive job, Manchester United, and it's a difficult one because everybody says you've got to play the Manchester United way. Well, those days are gone a little bit because football's completely changed. And, when the Charlton, Lawro and Best era, and they were brilliant, but, they'd like win games 5-4 and 4-3. I mean, defensively, they were distinctly average. So, we've got to play in a certain way. Well, you don't have to play in a certain way. You just got to win. And that's why I just look at Tuchel and his team and the way they're set up and think, well, they're the best set team to do so rather than Manchester United. They'll have some results where you think, wow, fabulous. And then, they go somewhere away from home and it's 0-0 and they just look like a complete bunch of strangers.
Yeah. And the superstars playing well. The superstars that have all come in to score goals, scoring goals helps. The Pep situation, I don't know if you follow this, it's across some of the back pages this morning, Mark, about he's under fire from the main supporters group for the comments that he made after the game the other night, where there were 15,000 short of capacity, and now this main supporters group are out saying, listen, Pep, you stick to the football and let us look after the other stuff, which I don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody. You don't have to stick to the football. He's entitled to have a view on whether the fans should turn up or not, and he's asking them to turn up for this weekend. But there's a bit of tension suddenly here now.
Well, a little bit, but he's untouchable, isn't he? So, but I get it because I mean I've done many games at City, and the atmosphere can be very strange sometimes. It's not. It's almost like, because if you think about City always had disasters, didn't they? There's always been a disaster, but they had the fans who would just turn up in the thousands and be very vociferous and stuff. I think the problem has been is they've almost become, in terms of supporters, a corporate team. You turn up and watch them and they beat someone 5 or 6-0 and all those kind of things, but you don't get a great sense. You know that feeling about 5 minutes before a game starts. And this noise is kind of boiling up, and you're waiting. And you think, "Wow, this is going to be good." You don't get that City. You get it at United. You get it at Liverpool. I think you get it at Chelsea as well at the moment. It's a little bit corporate for want of a better description. And
it must be really eating away at him. Like if he's decided, he knows that when he says that stuff, that it's going to, it's the impact it's going to have. It must be really eating away at him if he's felt the need to come out and say that after the game.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And your fans are either, well, they are what they are, aren't they? And what do they get, 50-odd thousand or something? But it's if a lot of them just kind of sit back and go, oh, go on then, entertain us. That's the way that it is. I mean, you can only speak about your time as a player. I remember at Liverpool, if after half an hour of the game started we weren't 3-0, they'd be moaning. And, they would not, seriously, they would. They'd be like, and somebody, you misplaced a pass and it's like, oh, Christ almighty, and all that kind of stuff. But then they realised that, the team on many occasions, would need lifting. And boy, did they lift us? And everyone talks about the Kop, but it was all over that ground. And you got that sense of real kind of really passionate supporters. And I know City will have lots of them, but they don't have 50,000 of them. They just seem to have, a relatively smaller number. But that's the way that it is. It's, as I say, they're just a little bit corporate-ish.
Yeah, it does feel that way. Before we let you off, we mentioned Edouard versus Van Dijk, which possibly is the way it ends up tomorrow at 3:00, and Palace have shown that they can swat away the mighty Tottenham, Mark, obviously in the last week or so. What's going to happen tomorrow?
I've got to take you to task The mighty Tottenham.
I did say that looking for a reaction, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Well, they look bog standard ordinary last week, didn't they? I saw a stat did Kane not have a touch in the opposition penalty area? Oh. I think I read. So I think the thing with Palace, it's definitely going to be a work in progress. I expect Liverpool to beat them and beat them quite comfortably. Edouard, well, the only problem about going to Anfield and playing against Van Dijk is you've got to have the ball. and without the ball, you can run all day and you can knock defenders over and you can be difficult to play against. But if you don't have the ball, you've got no chance of beating anybody.
Yeah. All right, we will keep an eye on it. Mark, thanks a million as always.
Pleasure.
Thanks a lot. Mark Lawrenson on the line there, looking back on the weekend's European football and ahead to the weekend as well. His power ranking of I get hammered for calling them the top 4 managers. Everton fans will be up in arms. We'll have Kevin Kilbane onto us, but I think everybody sort of accepts that's where it is. But Solskjaer very firmly 4th out of that list. United fans, what do you think? Is that a fair enough reflection on where things are at the minute? And he has Tuchel top, and then couldn't really pick between Pep and Klopp after that. So if you've got any thoughts on that, do feel free to fire them into us this morning. City have the new prawn sandwich brigade, says Gary Flynn on YouTube this morning. Mark Hogan, Jack Grealish misses Villa Park. I don't think he misses all that much, if we're being honest about it. It is OTB AM. It's 6 minutes past 8 on this Friday morning. It's Adrian and Aisling with you until 10 this morning. OTB AM brought to you by Gillette. Good mornings. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with the new and improved razors. We have lots to come on the show this morning, plenty to get into, and we'll do that very shortly. We're back after these.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
Are you at peace now, 25 years on, with what happened in Mayo in 96?
Oh, John, I get reminded regularly.
Sorry.
I happened to be down in a scrum today and I met a Meath man and he kind of had a bit of a laugh about it. He's still blaming Pat McEnany, incidentally, for sending off Liam McCain in the replay. We'll never forgive Pat.
Off the Ball, Saturdays from 1 on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
Car insurance is boring, but you don't have to be. Get Set Go is the kind of car insurance you can sort in a few minutes online, then bounce on with your day. Are you ready for Quick Start Insurance? Get a quote now at getsetgo.ie. MCL Insurance Services Ireland Limited, trading as getsetgo.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
All right, 8 minutes past 8. It is Friday morning. You're very welcome along and back to OTB AM. We have lots coming your way. We're going to catch up with one of the All-Ireland winning Meath footballers, Aoibheann Leahy, very shortly indeed. But before all of that, I do want to let you know what's happening across the back pages this morning. Some interesting stories. The Irish Independent, we're going to start with OTBSports.com and let you know exactly what's going on there. This was an interview that Nathan did with Kavitha Davidson last night on the continuing fallout from the child abuse scandals enveloping US gymnastics, and the brilliant testimony, as you can see, from some of the protagonists there. And that was Kavitha's thoughts on that last night. Lots more reaction from the European football as well during the week, including the thoughts of John Giles, all available on the OTB Sports app. Head along to your app store now and download it. Definitely the best place to pick up everything OTB, and on OTBSports.com as well. Right, the Irish Independent, that is a picture of Graham Carey, 32-year-old Graham Carey, who scored in Europe last night, but his team went down 5-1 to Roma. Consortium seek Dundalk deal. This is Dan MacDonald saying that it could be about to happen, that the current Dundalk owners, the US investors, are ready and willing to open to offers, including potentially from the former owners as well, the two local lads who all sold up in the end. Donoghue is favoured to return to role as Galway boss, says Colm Keys inside as well. We'll come back to that in a couple of moments' time. The Irish Examiner has Ready to Rumble on its sports front page today. National elites mark a return of indoor sport. That's ahead of the weekend's boxing, and plenty more inside as well. That is the Irish Examiner and the Irish Times on this Friday morning. The photograph there is the key moment, I suppose, in that Leicester game last night. Brilliant match last night, in fact. And I think Leicester were pretty hard done by, it has to be said, in the end, but they did succumb to a couple of quality goals. Aoibheann is a player that we're going to hear much more of over the next while. Brilliant header to steal a point for them, for Napoli at the end of that game, and that's the thoughts there. Lingard will be at United next year, says Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, backing his man, and plenty more inside as well, including Houghton sacked by Forest, with Cooper likely to take over. There's more fallout from the Houghton sacking there as well, and some of the other ones. Stick to coaching. Fans' chief hits back after Pep dig at crowd. That's in the Sun today. Guardiola under fire. Fans take pop at Pep. It's also a theme in the Mirror today. City supporter group hits out after the boss calls for more to turn up at the Etihad. I think fair enough. Pep, you got your opinion on whether fans should turn up or not. Show some respect for Pete's sake. This is Peter Ramsey on the thoughts of Kieran Whelan and the search for a new Kerry manager, and he's feeling that that's not that respectful to the is he outgoing, is he incumbent, is he incoming? Nobody really knows what the story with Peter Keane is. Maybe the Kerry County Board are having in-depth conversations with Peter Keane away from all this, and they're keeping him absolutely in the loop at every step and every sort of step of process, and maybe they're handling it brilliantly. If they are, they just haven't communicated that publicly that well. Pressure game. Houghton's new availability puts the heat on Kenny, writes Mark Gallagher. Does it really put the heat on Stephen Kenny, Aisling? I mean, I kind of feel that the Stephen Kenny situation is going to play out the way it plays out over the next few months, and he's either going to hang around or he's going to get the boot. I think, and it's written in some of the papers today, that Houghton's departure from Nottingham Forest suddenly puts the heat on Stephen Kenny. I think it has no impact. It doesn't impact on the FAI boards thinking about it. They're going to meet, I believe, at the end of November, where it's a big, obviously after the next round of games, it'll be a big source of a talking point. Whether Chris Houghton is available or not, that's just a different conversation that crops up down the track.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not team Stephen Kenny, but I just think a bit more time would be good. If we're going down that chat, I do think, there's development there, something we haven't had over the last couple of years, where we see young lads coming through. So I would be inclined to say give him that bit more time. Yeah,
give him the space and let him at it. Treat us better and we can play better. It's Rory Keane. This is the latest in the ongoing tension, I think, between the Irish rugby players and the IRFU, who've launched now investigation into all the events with the shocking training facilities around the Interpros over the last few weeks. So that is the thoughts inside there. Empty vessel. Fiora City fans tell Pep to hush up. Whelan, it's unfair on Keane, and for fuck's sake, I think is going to get our nod for tab of the morning to you here after very disappointed looking Leicester players there. Jamie Vardy after the game last night, they really had it within their grasp. They were very much in control of that match, but it wasn't to be. The evening hurl for you. All I know is it's a results game. Kerry makes his mark in Roma Clash. That's that shot from Graham Kerry scoring last night, and that story from Dan McDonnell as well about Dundalk inside. Some of the English papers for you. Stick to coaching. Fans hit back at Guardiola, and that's West Ham last night. Declan Rice on target there, 2-0 against Dinamo Zagreb. 2 weeks to save the Ashes. England players must decide on accepting COVID rules by the end of the month. That's the Times of London. Pep's crowd dig. Royal City fans, that's the Times, and City supporters tell Guardiola to stick to coaching is very much a team that's going to run and run and run. He's going to be asked about it again probably before and after the game at the weekend. It'll be a full ground, I suspect, for Premier League games from a Manchester City point of view. It just feels I think the weirdness around it is that the games are just back, and it is a home game for City against Southampton. It's at 3 o'clock on Saturday. It's going to be 55,000 full, you expect, for it. It just feels, the thing that sort of is a bit weird for me, and I get that fans have families and fans have huge expenses and economies haven't been brilliant over the last 18 months. The only weirdness around it for me is that fans haven't been able to get to stadiums for the last 18 months. So if ever there was a time to get out and support your team, now is probably it. But it wasn't obviously the case with the lads over the weekend. So Right, or during the week, I should say. Some of the pieces that stood out for us, Aisling. The Irish Examiner, I'm going to go with here first. The John Fogarty writing inside about championship proposals must move with the time. So he's done an interview with Eddie Sullivan, who's outgoing chair of the National Fixtures Calendar Review Committee. Like, they can never be too succinct about these things, and just that it's all up for grabs again next month. The committee is going to sit down again to review the championship fixtures. And listen, audience, I do appreciate that there's nothing as boring as an ongoing conversation about whether the format should change or go, but it is coming back into the radar now, and there are two options on the table. The 4 provincial conferences of 8, which would see a bit of jiggery-pokery from some teams in some provinces going to other provinces to make up the balance of 8 across the board. So effectively, that's the shorthand for it. And then the second one is the championship played in the current league format. So each team would have an opportunity to win the Sam Maguire every year. And I think that's important that they set out with that. That's been a bit of a sacrificial lamb that they don't want to get rid of, but I do think that that's important that all teams set out and then they sort of make it divisional. And the thing that John Fogarty does point out, by the way, that should either proposal fail to receive minimum 60% backing to come into operation from next year, the Super 8s has another year, so that's the sort of bridge that they'll take to go back and review and maybe come up with something new, because these proposals, as Eddie Sullivan points out, were made a couple of years ago and were obviously delayed from getting through with COVID and all of that jazz. But the basis, the foundation, I think, for going with something like like that league format is John Fogarty's done up a table here of average winning margins, and you can't see it, but I'll give you the 2 key figures from it. He's done it from 2017 across the 5 seasons up to this season. Overall winning margin in 2021 across the provinces in championship was 12 points, and the overall winning margin across the league, geographically split but across the league, was just over 5 points. That's exactly the reason for creating competition where teams are more evenly matched.
Absolutely, and I need to look into those proposals a bit more, but as you said, Adrian, if you're not going out at the start of the year looking to win the Sam Maguire, you know, you have teams going out now that are looking to get out of Division 4, get up to Division 3, you know, they're thinking of leagues, and then you have other counties that are just hoping, look, we'll look at provincial, we'll try get by that, we'll try and get a provincial title here. So if we want a real competition, you need to look at that. Like, even look at Kerry this year. They came through, what was it, Clare, Tipperary. They were their teams that they played before. They went on to maybe those tougher games, and were they fully ready? Look, did Tyrone have those Ulster games? Were they a bit more ready for that with the intensity of them? There's all these questions you could ask, and yeah, I definitely think there's no point us waiting around for the semi-final and final to see good games, you know. That's not what it's all about. So yeah, I absolutely think something needs to be done that it's a bit more competitive. Yeah, and I think that, like, actually by the nature of the teams, the way it's stacked up this year, the top end of the championship is, I think, going to be more competitive next year, and hopefully for the next few years as Dublin come back a bit and some of the other teams step up, and that's grand. But it's more to do with the other 98% of matches that there's a bit more sort of competitiveness about them. It's not even about the top end of it. Like, that's just the elite stuff that most counties can only dream about, and some of them not even that. Unfortunately, Aisling, coming from Westmeath, as you'll appreciate, that's not even on the radar. So look, there's a few. Go on. Yeah, no, just what I was going to say was you sort of leave those counties behind then, and all the lads coming through there, you've young lads looking at that going, what's the point? That's not the message that you'd want to get across. You know, you'd want them to be looking at, look, there's a possibility here. You start every year with the hope and the want to win, don't you? So yeah, I think it needs to be there for them to be able to grasp. Yeah, and we are going to talk about, you're going to lead us in now in just a second to the our next chat this morning about Meath football. I mean, look at it, we've often said it's like Tommy Rooney's been leading the way and somebody's got to take on the mantle, Aisling, so you are definitely going to do that first. But a reminder that you're watching OTB AM, 19 minutes past 8 on this Friday morning, brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, put your best face forward with the new and improved razors. A couple of stories that we'll come back to in just a little bit, Aisling, but Meath football first. Yes, absolutely. So we're going to turn our attention back to the football. On Friday, October 22nd, the Meath LGFA is hosting a golf classic to celebrate the 2021 All-Ireland champions and to raise money for a well-deserved team holiday. A team of 4 can get involved for €450, or you can sponsor a tee box for €500. I'm delighted that we're joined now by Meath's Aoibheann Leahy. Good morning, Aoibheann. Morning. How are things? Good. Are the celebrations still going strong?
I think we're recovering from the celebrations last week now in preparation for club championships at the weekend. So I think we've had enough.
Absolutely. And we're just speaking about the holiday there. So where do you hope to go, or is there a plan? Have you been chatting yet?
There's no real plan in place yet. All we know is we're going around December time to just around Christmas time to suit a lot of teachers that are on the panel. So no, look, everyone's looking forward to it, and that we'll all have a chance to let off a bit of steam together.
Yes, absolutely. And you are a teacher yourself. You're in school there at the minute. What was it like, I suppose, when you arrived back to the school?
Oh, yeah, last week when I came back into school, God, it was like goosebumps driving in the avenue. The children were so excited to see me. It was unbelievable. And they had organised like a guard of honour with like in their class groups, and all the children had like come out in their green and gold and they'd flags and everything up, and they were all cheering. So it was really a nice day, and I got to see a few classes and answer a few questions. And a lot of kids actually went up to Croke Park, and the majority of them that weren't there were actually watching it on the television. And look, I suppose if that's all that the final and the win is going to do, is to encourage children to take part in sport, any sport, but particularly the Gaelic games, and that's a win for us as well.
Absolutely. And the rise of Meath ladies football, it's been spoke about quite a bit now over the last month or two. Obviously going from the intermediate championship straight up into senior. What do you think the difference was maybe this year that it just sort of all clicked, from watching on and watching these the last few years? For me, that's how I describe it. It just seemed to click into place.
Yeah, look, we all just put it down to hard work on the pitch. Like, obviously we played the intermediate final in December, and then there were lockdowns, and everyone took it upon themselves. Everyone took onus for themselves to work hard during the lockdown when we couldn't be together. And then when we were back on the pitch, it was hard work. It was continuous, and like practicing the way we want to play and the way we wanted to perform. And it was just, like I said, continuous hard work. And it did just click for us. But I suppose that was because of it being continuous.
Even given the story of the team, like, the path that you'd taken over the last couple of years, and it was everybody's aware of it at this point, the intermediate and the overnight, let's call it. I'm sure you won't look at it that way. Success, the profile of the team you play on in terms of the age profile of it, the style of football that you're playing. Keepack on the jerseys obviously has helped, but I do think that everybody is really it caught the attention of the country. Were you guys aware of that internally, that like there was a bit of a people's champion almost about you?
I suppose after the game, yeah. Look, we had such a big focus on the job that we had to do going into the All-Ireland final. But we knew, that this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen often. You don't often hear teams coming up from intermediate to the senior ranks and being as successful as we were. And you see, we had a belief in our camp that we would be able to do what we've done, which didn't seem to be the belief of people on the outer circles that weren't friends or family or anyone close to the team. So,
where did that come from, Adrian? Where was that belief coming from?
I don't know exactly, but our management will always tell us like we're a special group, and I fully believe that we are like. We have a great bond together, and I'm not just saying that, as a collective group, we're all very, very close, and that's been built for the last few years, and through the hard times, I suppose, because we know what it feels like to lose and now we can appreciate winning.
And just the way you were speaking there of the fans and everything else, like one of the pictures that I remember was used at going up to the hill after the game, and a lot of Meath supporters had went to the hill. Any WhatsApp groups or anything that I was in, it was like, get tickets for the hill, everyone's going to the hill. And it was like scenes of years ago, of the men's team back in the 90s that you would see. It was just unbelievable, and you all ran up to them. That must be a moment that'll always stick with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And God, it just seemed like there was a sea of green. Like there were so many Meath supporters there, and like even when we were playing the game, every shout and every roar that the fans made just like spurred us on in the moment. But no, look, it was great. It was really something that we'll all definitely remember. And a lot of lads, like that's what not that I was surprised, but there were a lot of like young lads and men that were there to support us, and really meant a lot to them as well. You know.
And a thing that Vicky had mentioned was about everybody wearing the women's jersey, and I suppose you haven't seen that as much. You know, you'd always see everyone around in the men's jersey, and just as the point you alluded to there, that, you know, there were so many men and young lads that were so interested in this team. It is different, I suppose. Have you ever experienced that before?
No, but I do think women's sport and the respect for women's sport is growing, and it's clear. Like it's so clear now after the weekend before last that this means more to people than we even thought, around the county and even around the country. So yeah, like there's a big step forward for women's sport, and I really do think, especially our win, it being so historic for the county, that across the country, that this will do a lot for women's sport and the LGFA.
Yeah, anyone that I talk to, whether it's sport or, I don't know, a career or whatever it is that they're doing, you know, it really has inspired them. It's a story that many people will look at and take a lot from. And just personally for you, Aoibheann, your journey has been quite a special one. I seen you when you were, I suppose you were a sub on the team, you were coming off the bench quite a bit, you weren't fully getting that starting place, but then this year you really cemented that starting place. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey, and I suppose how tough or how hard did you have to work to get to that point?
Yeah, I was having a little think about this last night actually, and you know how long I've been playing and the positions I've played on the team. And look, I joined the panel in 2013. I was just around leaving cert, and I was so excited to be asked up to join the Meath ladies panel. And from then on, it was always an honour to be training and representing my club and the county and putting on the Meath jersey. It was an honour, and I always wanted to do it. So, you know, when I went to training, I always wanted to work hard. And obviously, you know, everybody wants to be starting on the starting 15. And I suppose, look, I had played in a variety of positions. I was in the half forwards, I played midfield, and now I'm a wing half back. But I suppose maybe from a management perspective, maybe they saw that, you know, the way the game is going, that a wing half back can, you know, you're useful in attack as well as around the middle of the field. So look, it just worked out for me. It just worked out for me this year, through all the hard work and everything that's gone on. I wasn't going to let it slip. Every time I go out to training, I'm there for a reason. I'm there to improve myself. So look, you know, I know, as I said, everybody wants to get a starting position on the team, and it's good to have good, healthy competition. But no, I was delighted to be getting a starting place this year.
And that was a question I was going to ask, because you wouldn't really be known as probably a half-back. Was that something that the management came? Did they come and say to you, will you go in the half-back position? We see you there.
Yeah, like I know if you look at the way we play, with our half-forwards dropping back, and we play quite defensively anyway. So when I was in the half-forward role, I was coming back as a defender, kind of, and then bursting forward. So switching me from half forward to half back wasn't much of a difference in the way that I would have to try and play. So no, it suited me, and I really enjoyed the position, the way we play the game.
And you have your sister Alva, she's on the panel alongside you. That must be nice.
Yeah, oh, it's great. You know, even during the lockdown, there was two of us doing the runs, there were two of us doing our gym exercises at home, and even coming and going from games when with COVID we couldn't get buses, so it was always nice to have company. And Alva's a little dinger. She's very fast, so hopefully she'll get her chance now in the coming years.
Yeah, I've seen her in action all right for Navan O'Mahony's. I'm sure I'll be seeing you again in the next few weeks or so. And just speaking as well, just Yeah, and just on, has anybody spoke, I suppose, on 2 in a row? Do you look ahead that far?
You laugh actually, because the school had a poster up outside of the school, and best luck to Miss Leahy in the All-Ireland final, and I'm saying, well, hopefully now you can hold on to it for next year. So that's the talk at the moment.
And obviously family has a massive part to play in all of this. I suppose without that, we wouldn't be getting to our games and everything alongside all of that. And obviously your mom, Dorothy, she passed away 2 years ago. Obviously that must have been very tough for you, but the girls really rallied around you.
Yeah, look, God, Mum had a great influence over us, growing up. She never would have missed a club or a county game, and only for dropping us to train and then bringing us to matches, like you said. And I suppose looking back on Sunday 2 weeks ago, in Croke Park, it was the most joyous occasion for us, myself and Alva and the rest of the family. But it was sad in one sense that she wasn't there to share the occasion. Like, you don't get much bigger than an All-Ireland final. And what would have been always my dream as a little girl, you just would have loved to have shared it with her. But, as I said before, look, I assume, I believe that she's looking down and that she's proud of the both of us for what we've achieved, and like to think that we had a 16th player on the day.
Oh, absolutely. And I suppose having that panel of girls as well, your sister alongside you, that must be special and must have helped you a lot in that tough time.
Yeah, Aisling, I recall going back to training, my first training back after Mum's funeral, and we didn't wait too long. It was kind of, there was no point. I wanted to get back to training and to be around people that care. And the girls didn't have to say anything at training. I just got that on the shoulder when I was going out from the change room, and just everyone just looking out for you and making sure you're all right. And there was friendship on the team is invaluable, and that's the truth.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I definitely know what it's like to have a group of girls, no matter what you're going through. So I think that's really special that they were there for you. It's very, very important.
Just like I meant to say it there as well. Like, look, it's not just me. Like, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to what I've been going through. It's just me that's talking about it. And I know that other people have other things going on as well. But I'm sure, with the article that came out before the semi-final, like, there's it was amazing the amount of people that got in contact with me that can relate to what's going on with them too. So, it's good to talk about it.
Yeah, it's powerful.
It's great to talk about it. Yeah,
powerful. Absolutely, giving quality voice to it, Aoibheann, is a huge thing, and it's good for you and it's good for people to hear that, like you've said, in terms of the reaction to it. Can you talk to me a bit about, I think there'll be a lot of counties looking at what you guys have done over the last while, and there's other counties coming through, maybe the likes of Westmeath and other counties that maybe haven't been in the conversation around achieving the sort of things that you've achieved now. Do you think, I mean, I don't want to start talking about templates, but do you think that there are elements of what you guys have put in place in terms of structures to achieve what you've done over the last few years that are applicable to other counties, or is this just a very unique thing and the confluence of a bunch of factors that have come together to allow you to do it?
Look, I like to think that we're unique. But I do think that what we've done has given hope to other counties that, like, it can be done. Like, we're only human at the end of the day. It's 15 on 15 and a panel of 30 or 40, like, that every county would have. And there's no substitute for hard work, and that's what we did. But I do believe that there's something special in Meath and in the Meath camp. But I do think, but like I said, it does give hope to other counties that like Dublin aren't too far off, Cork aren't too far off. Like, we're all just. I used to say, like, before a game, you'd be thinking, I'm like, they have 2 arms and 2 legs, the same as me. We're 15 girls on 15 girls. Like, it's not this, like, really far away goal that you have to get to. But it does take a lot of hard work, and it does take like psychologically it takes a lot. You know, it's a massive commitment too.
Yeah, and like I think the thing that like we're chatting about all the goodwill, right, that you had this year and the public sentiment towards you, that's gone now, right? Like, you know, that like once you've won it, everybody's like, you've done it now. I mean,
you're no longer
in with
the
rest of
underdog.
them. Yeah.
I know, that's the thing. Like, we'll be the team to get now next year. Whereas no one really feared us this year coming into the competition. It was just like, oh, sure, they're up from intermediate. But no, there'll be people out to get teams out to get us next year.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, listen, you're not going anywhere anytime soon, and we'll be talking to you again down the track. Thanks a million for joining us. Congratulations again, Aoibheann.
Thanks a million for having me.
Thanks a lot. And a reminder as well, by the way, Aisling mentioned at the very top, but October 22nd, Meath LGFA hosting a golf classic. You can see all the details on your screen there to celebrate their champions and raising money as well for a well-deserved team holiday. You can get a team of 4 involved for €450, sponsor a tee box for €500. And as I said, all those details are on the screen there. We'll try and tweet something out a little bit later on as well, because it's a great cause, and they players deserve to go and enjoy themselves off the back of that. There's one other story we want to mention before we get into our next piece, and it was in relation to, it's back to the GAA, and Donoghue is favoured to return to a role as Galway boss. Aisling writes Colm Keys in the Indo this morning. Donoghue cited family reasons for his departure at the time, but it was felt locally that he had concerns over the resourcing of the team and issues subsequently developed with county officers. Like, look, we'll see what happens with the Galway job. It looks as if, from a few of the reports across the papers this morning, that might be a real runner. I just can't. If there was a GAA president who was of a mind, or maybe it's a director general's role, or whoever it would be, but somebody to come in on that level and sort out county boards, actually, you know, like just that quote there, how many times have we read and seen that over the years about like the right person for the job? In this case it's Micheál Donoghue, and at the time he cited family reasons for it, but you know, anybody on the ground will tell you maybe there were deeper reasons for that in terms of the relations with the county board. So that the right person in place, but there's this nonsense that goes on with an amateurish approach to the running of the games, and like surely there's something that can be done. Like, we've just been talking about templates there, and I'm not suggesting that it's one size fits all, and by the way, there are loads of supports that Croke Park will offer counties and clubs to run their outfits, but surely there's more that could be done. If somebody could come in, like processes and procedures and finances, let's face it, like the payment to managers and whatever other payments that are going on, if there's somebody that could come in at a high level of the GAA or a Croke Park and sort all that stuff out, it would be an incredible legacy to the running of our national games.
Exactly, and it is all going on. It is all happening, so why not put a bit of structure in place? That's actually a question that I actually chatted with some of the pundits that I worked with, some of the managers. You know, a point that they made to me was that, you know, the game itself has gone so professional in terms of how they run the team, how the teams train, how the players themselves go on, but they brought it back to the county board and how that sometimes can be very amateur, and that's a problem. So that's funny you mention that, because that was something we did speak about again, but away from the mic, but they would sort of express how they felt there, that something needs to be done in structures and the way things are ran and all of that. So yeah, there's definitely something in that, and I think where the game is at this point in time, it needs to be ran better when it comes to the county boards. Absolutely.
Yeah, and look at their volunteer positions, and maybe that's something they could look at. There are obviously some full-time positions that exist, and maybe that's just, I don't know, something they could look at. It just feels like it's a conversation that's like that we have to go back to too often, when there's so much time and energy invested and in the running of the games and the playing of the games, that maybe there's something more we could do on that front. I will leave it on one comment. Cyril Farrell's expert view inside the Indo today. He talks about when he came back to the Galway job for a second time. Obviously this is in the context of a possible return for Micheál Donoghue. He said the first thing we did was to rinse out the panel from top to bottom. Whoever takes over now needs to do the same. It's time for the coldest form of ruthlessness, says Cyril here. And then he gets into a conversation about the return of the great one, Aisling. He says on Joe Canning's, who retired obviously not that long ago, he says he should come back, probably not as a starter, but as a super sub coming on in the second half. The man is a hurling genius, and genius doesn't need 70 minutes.
I agree, yes, of course, but I don't think you need to be calling him back after he's just announced.
That's it.
He's gone.
He's back.
That's
done.
his decision. Yeah.
I think it's first point of business for Meath O'Donoghue, right? Like it's like he's got to get his ducks in a row. But one of the greatest hurlers that's ever lived. He's only 32, 33 off the top of my head. He's definitely got a bit more to give. Now, he's had injuries over the years and he's given a lot over the years, and he owes Galway nothing, so there's no obligation on it. But you would, wouldn't you? You'd pick Joe Mihal here. Listen, coming back, what are you thinking?
Look, it'd be amazing, it'd be a dream, but I think some players don't like to go that way either. You know, maybe he likes to go as that starting player, as, you know, he's not into coming off the bench and doing a job that way. Some players aren't like that, you know. They're not in it for that, you know. They don't want to end that way, I suppose. So I don't know. Look, it would be an amazing story to see him back. Of course, we'd all like to see him out there again, but I don't think we'll see it happening.
Joe,
somehow.
you could be Cathal McShane. That's how that conversation goes. I think that's what's going on with that. 20 to 9 Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM, and delighted to have you along with us. We've loads of comments coming in. We'll come to those in just a little bit. But delighted to say we're joined on the line this morning by Nicci Daly, who you'll know from the Irish hockey team, obviously part of that famous 2018 World Cup team. But busy, Nicci, inspiring and facilitating the next generation of female competitors in your other sport, motorsport. Good morning to you.
Morning, how are you?
People will be, as I said, familiar with you, and some people from your motorsport side, but certainly from the hockey side. Will you talk to us a little bit about the motorsport interest, the lineage, and how all that's come about?
Yeah, so obviously I was born into a motor racing family, with my uncle Derek racing Formula 1 and Indy cars, and my own dad being a very well recognised racing driver here in Ireland. So I've been around it all my life, and you know, I wanted to get involved in it. I studied mechanical engineering, went to the UK and did a master's in motorsport engineering, and then went to work for a racing team in the States as a data engineer. So during my time of studying and working in the sport, I realised there was very few women, girls, you know, involved in the sport, either participating on the track or away from the track. And when I came back after working in the States, I wanted to do something. I wanted to share my positive experience that I had. You know, I had so much fun getting to go to all the racetracks around America, being at a different track every weekend, and, you know, saying that the pit lane was basically my office, and to, I suppose, highlight the different career opportunities that are involved in the sport. And so in 2018, I set up a platform called Formula Female in order to do exactly that, to try and highlight the different opportunities, the different women who are involved in the sport all around the world, and just make it a place that women could feel it was an opportunity for them to get involved if they wanted to. So in 2019 then I launched the Go Girls Karting Initiative, which was a joint venture between Motorsport Ireland and Formula Female. It was part of the Sport Ireland's Women in Sport programme, and it was backed by an Irish motor racing team, CJJ Motorsports. And since then, we've introduced over 500 schoolgirls to motorsport through the programme until COVID hit. So it's been an incredible journey so far with Formula Female, and we've managed to open sport up to so many young girls. And this weekend, we're running an all-female team. We've got 7 drivers taking part in the Tillotson T4 World Cup event at White River Karting Centre in County Louth. And we're introducing 2 brand new drivers who have never, you know, taken part in the sport before, and that was a key objective, I suppose, of the Go Girls program, was to increase the active participation. So we're really looking forward to the weekend and seeing all the girls out there competing against some of the, you know, the best drivers in the world.
Yeah, it's incredible. And just because I want to come back obviously to talk about that, but one last one on your own path, Nicci. You're a mechanical engineer, as you said. You've been looking at your dad and your uncle, been, like, I presume, sort of knee deep in engines and very deep in the top end of motorsport. When you were looking at that, had you ever in mind that you would follow them down that path, or was it always to do with the engineering side of it, or what was your own?
I suppose, like, yeah, when I was younger, I probably wanted to be just like them. I wanted to be a racing driver. But, you know, my dad was very much focused on his own racing at the time. And unfortunately, he passed away when I was quite young. So I didn't really get that opportunity to make that step into the driving side of it. But I've done a couple of events here and there on the driving side, and I think I'll do a few more in the next couple of years. But I got into it, the engineering side, I suppose, when I started studying mechanical engineering, and I realised that there was so much to learn around the engineering of motorsport, and something that, you know, I knew my dad was doing these things himself, but I wasn't aware that it was engineering, and there was actually these kind of careers within the sport at a young age. I didn't realise. So, you know, when I finished college, it certainly became an area and an avenue that I wanted to explore.
Yeah, it's not easy, is it? Like, and I presume that's a big part of why you've set up Formula Female and gone down that path in terms of trying to open those avenues that you've spoken about. But it's not an easy sport to get into. It's not like picking up a football or a tennis racket.
No, it is. It's like, I think as well, the fact that people don't really know about it, and they're not aware of, you know, even maybe the motorsport we have here in Ireland. And I suppose it's about that. It's about sort of opening it up and creating these opportunities for them to get involved. And, you know, working with Motorsport Ireland and Tillotson Racing, Tillotson have just introduced a brand new, it's called the T4 package that they released in 2019, and the aim of it is to be a more affordable, more accessible route into motorsport. And so working with them and working with Motorsport Ireland, we can allow, you know, it gives us an avenue to be able to open up an entry point to the sport for young people. So, you know, there is things kind of happening, but again, it's about sort of raising the awareness of it with, you know, young people around the country.
And Nicci, if you didn't put this team together, you know, there was stats saying that there'd be only maybe 2 girls competing out of the 91 drivers at the competition this weekend. You know, that's unbelievable stat, really. Is that probably, I suppose, the main reason that you decided to take hold of this and try get it going?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think there might be 3 other girls who are competing in the event, and so for us, it's, you know, we're obviously bringing 7 extra female drivers to it, and, you know, we've got girls across all the different age categories. So we've got, you know, girls in the T4 mini at age 10 all the way up to the T4 senior at age like 24, which is brilliant. You know, you're getting an opportunity to bring all these girls together, and for them, they feel like, you know, they feel part of a team. They feel they're supported, and they're also able to support each other when they're out there. And obviously it gives them a huge amount of confidence then to be coming together and to be sharing in the experience. But yeah, obviously, you know, increasing the female participation is a huge part of what we do, and it's a huge part of the Go Girls initiative. So to be able to bring these 5 girls together who have raced before, and then the 2 additional ones, it also, for the 2 girls who've never been involved before, again, it gives them that kind of feeling of support and encouragement for their first outing. So.
And some of the girls as well, I remember when I met you, I think it was back in 2019 at the launch of Formula Female, and I met Holly Dinan that day. She was, I think, maybe 10 or 11 years old. And I remember her enthusiasm and how infectious she was. And she was so buzzing about being out in the car, and she just couldn't wait, you know, to get into the bigger car. She was telling me, I'm in my cart, but I can't wait to be able to get into the bigger car. And she's going to be racing this weekend.
Yeah, Holly's been with us, since we kind of started. And yeah, like you said, she was probably only 11 back then, and she's 13 now. And like, it's great to see them grow as well over the time. And, you know, she's doing everything she can to kind of improve her racing. And yeah, she does have her sights set on moving into the bigger cars when she's old enough. And to be honest, that's not too far away when it comes to motorsport. You know, you can kind of get into Ginetta Juniors, which are, you know, road or racing cars from the age of 14. So yeah, it's brilliant to have Holly with us. And, you know, this weekend is also about the launch of a children's book that we've collaborated with Laura Hannon, who's a mechanical engineer, but also a motorsport enthusiast. And like what I just mentioned before, Laura had no real way of getting into the sport. She always had an interest in it, but she didn't really know how to get involved in it. So she reached out to us and said, you know, I have this idea. I want to get involved in motorsport, and, you know, I'm inspired by Formula Female. And so this weekend we're launching in, I suppose, partnership with MSL Range Motors, her book, which is called Daisy's First Race Car. And the message in the book is to dream like Daisy, to encourage the next generation to believe anything is possible and to follow your dreams, basically.
Great. And it's working. It is working on, like reading the brief, it's working on a load of different levels, Nicci. You're not just trying to tick one box here. You're trying to inspire everybody at all sorts of levels, including the pursuit of STEM subjects as well in school. It's a powerful thing. I did wonder, by the way, about, like, we're all experts in motorsport now. I've seen Drive to Survive. I think I'm very much equipped to hold my own here in any conversation about motorsport. Have you found there's a bit of a trickle down from that in terms of interest?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Drive to Survive has definitely sparked a lot of interest among people. I even know from the hockey team, you know, I've been banging on about Formula 1 for years, and they're always like, oh, for God's sake, that's stupid sport where they just drive around in circles. And now the girls are all about it. They are like, oh my God, it's amazing. I didn't know there was so much, you know, that went on in the background. And, you know, you get to learn obviously about the drivers and their personalities and how the teams operate and things. So yeah, it's definitely again, it's about opening the sport up and making people, or drawing people in to a certain level. And I think that has definitely sparked an interest. But I also think that the sport in general is trying to become more inclusive and more accessible. You know, they're trying to maybe shake off that tag of being elitist and trying to make, you know, the sport more diverse and accessible for everyone.
Can I ask you just on that topic of sort of the accessibility of sports and the perception of elite sports in Ireland, and maybe in some ways the damage that's been done with the rugby example over the last week, if that's something you've seen or have a thought on?
Yeah, with the Connacht girls, yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's... Yeah, you're trying to, you know, we're all trying to do things here to make it equal and to give equal opportunities to everyone. And I think that, like that, you know, it was horrific to see them standing in those pop-up tents at the side of a pitch and rats running around them. It's not acceptable. And I think that it just goes to show that there's still a lot more to be done in terms of equality in sport for women. And hopefully, you know, that'll be another thing that's going to bring it to light that there is a lot more to be done.
And on the hockey side, we mentioned at the very top, we can't, I'm sure it's not the hot priority for you at the minute. How were the team at in terms of processing what happened at the Olympics? Were you obviously used to you guys being such high achievers? You've created your own benchmark of expectation, is the unfortunate side of the great achievements you've had over the years. But how have you as a group managed to address that and put it to one side? Or where's the disappointment at now, I suppose, at this stage of the year?
I suppose I haven't been back with the squad, so it's hard to know really where the squad is at the minute. I suppose I'm in a different phase of my career to others, and look, you know, the Olympics was an incredible experience. Obviously it didn't go the way we wanted it to go, and we didn't achieve the goals that we had set out for ourselves, and that was disappointing. And, you know, you put so much into an Olympic Games. It takes, you know, for all of us, it was all of our careers, the 10 years, 12 years that went before it, 15 for some of the girls that went before it. And, you know, you spend your whole life committing to this, and then it doesn't quite go that way that you want it to go, and then you kind of come back and it's almost like nothing's happened. So it's very emotional feeling, and there's a lot of different emotions, I suppose, that it's hard to just even put it into words. It's still a bit of a process to come down from that experience and that whole build up, that it's not just this year was the build up, it's your whole career is the build up to it. And, you know, especially when you don't achieve what you wanted to achieve and you feel like, oh, we were just the wrong side of a couple of results. It's it's tough. And I think that the process of, you know, getting through it and understanding it is probably still happening for the team at the minute.
Yeah, all right. Well, look, a reminder to people, Formula Female Karting World Cup, Tillotson T4 Karting World Cup. Where's the best place for people to go if they want to check out more information on it?
Yeah, actually, they're going to live stream it this weekend. So if you check out any, like the Formula Female page, Tillotson Racing page on Facebook or Instagram, there'll be a link to their YouTube channel, and you can watch some of the racing if you want, or you can find out more information on either of those sites, or motorsportireland.com will also give you some information on how to get started if that's something that you're interested in.
Brilliant. Nicci, thanks a million.
No problem, thank you.
Nicci Daly on the line there, looking ahead to that the weekend. Tell us a bit more detail on Well, it's a pretty incredible story, it has to be said, that work that she's doing to inspire the next generation of young sports people in the country, and in motorsport particularly, Aisling, because it is, no matter your gender, it's a tough sport to get into, but certainly the stats that she provided there in terms of what a landslide for male versus female that it is, it's powerful work she's doing.
Yeah, and I think it is tough to know how to get into it. Where do you start? Where do you go? I think in Ireland anyway, it's not known to where do you go to get involved. But I think what she's doing is brilliant. And I was just looking through some of the profiles of some of the girls as well, and some of their goals and their aspirations. And it's brilliant to see, like, some of their goals are like to drive a Red Bull Formula One car,
Class.
and to see those things and for them to be actually saying them and believing, oh look, this is something I can chase and this is the goal that's possible, is brilliant. And it's all the work that Nicci's doing.
Yeah. We'll be back to it again. I've absolutely no doubt about that. It's 5 to 9. You're watching OTB AM, and we're delighted to have you along with us this morning. Still loads of comments coming in. OTB AM brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with the new and improved razors. Lots of chat coming in. Aisling, off the back of our GEA conversation earlier on about county boards getting their ducks in a row, and particularly on the side of the getting the fixtures sorted and all that kind of stuff. So we'll be back to that, no doubt, again. Enda Coll, good morning to you.
Adrian, how are you?
We booked this lot yesterday. I wasn't expecting almost either of you to turn up on the basis of that shambles last night.
I wouldn't exactly call it a shambles.
A delight to watch for the neutral, right? But I definitely did think of the two of you last night, and with this item in mind, that it's tough watch. Or I mean, are you still taking into the this is a progressive plan in place, and look, we're the wrong side of a 7-goal thriller, but we're nearly there? Or what are you thinking?
Yeah, well, I actually I was recording Team 33 during it, and when I started the recording, Celtic were 2-0 up. By the end of it, they were 4-2 down, 4-3 in the end. If you had told me at this stage last night, with Celtic going into that game without their main striker, without their main midfielder, with a back four that has only played together once before this, and came out against Real Betis, who have bought one of Arsenal's players, where Celtic are selling players to Arsenal, I would have said 4-3 is a good result. The more annoying part about it is that it's another European result for Celtic, where they take the initiative from the start, they go ahead, and then they just can't hold on to the result in the end. So it is frustrating, but considering the squad depth at the minute and the starting lineup the Celtic went out in that pitch with to boss the game for the first 25 minutes, and I think they did. I don't think it's unfair to say that. To boss it in the way that they did, to take the initiative, I think there's loads of positives in it. But again, the result is what matters. So I can see why people would be disappointed, but I ultimately think it's a decent result, and it's positivity going into the next game, because if Celtic have the likes of Kyogo Furuhashi coming back into that team, Cal McGregor, their captain, coming into the midfield, I'd fancy Celtic to beat Real Betis at Celtic Park. So I come out of really positive, actually, in spite of the defeat.
Aisling, it sounds like, and you're nodding, you're in the same boat.
Absolutely. Like I said it here in the house before the game, like, would we take a draw? And my boyfriend Colin, now he's a big Celtic fan too, he said absolutely, like, look, there's 6-7 injuries here that are costly, so we didn't know what way they set up, as Enda said. So yeah, I definitely think in the first 25 minutes they were really impressive. They just went out with this full energy. The tempo was brilliant to see, and they had the chances, and that was probably the only annoying part, because they could have went 3-0 up. Jota had a chance, but it just got away on him. But he did a super game as well, and he's only someone we're starting to see more from as well. So there's loads of positives to take from it, and the new manager, like, I think it's growing, it's developing, something's happening. It's better to be a Celtic supporter this season around, that's for sure. And I think that's what you get from the fans as well. Like, they're happy with how things are going. Yes, of course, you want to get that result, but as Enda said, I think in the second leg that we can get over them.
Yeah, like conceding 4 against a mid-table Liga team, and I know that, Enda, you're saying that they've sort of, they've dipped into the market obviously in a significant way. Is this similar to the Liverpool conversation we were having with Mark Lawrenson earlier on, that once Van Dijk is back, all this gets fixed, that once all the players are fit and ready, that's a pretty solid unit? Or what's the sense? 4 against Betis is not great.
No, well, you see, the issue is that there's not much more to come back into this team, Adrian. As I said, Cal McGregor comes back into midfield and Kyogo Furuhashi comes up front. But Celtic bought 11 players in the transfer window and they're still incredibly short in major positions. It was just a major upheaval of the entire squad. Loads of good players leaving. Edouard going to Crystal Palace. You know, the likes of Ryan Christie going to Bournemouth was disappointing for the club to lose a player like that. Loads of loanees over the last couple of years. So this is a sort of a culmination of bad management from board level over the last couple of years. The Celtic are in this position. They only really have two main strikers that they trust. They only really have two wingers on each side. So if one gets injured, like last night, you're left with one person. The likes of Adam Montgomery is a young player coming through. He's a left back. He was playing left wing last night because Celtic's main left winger is out injured. Midfield is a serious issue. The likes of Cal McGregor's out injured. Ismail Asoro started in centre defensive midfield because apparently James McCarthy has COVID. Packy Boner let that slip last night in the match coverage. That wasn't actually reported before that. But basically they're working off two players in each position right now. And for a season that you're playing Europa League football and the Scottish League is condensed as it is, it's not a great situation going into the season. And it actually reminds me very much of the FAI in a way, the way that Celtic has been run. Loads of old white men in suits at board level, one in particular with far too much power, and it's just been a mess over the last couple of years. So it's going to take more than Ange Postecoglou to change this, and by the looks of it, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen maybe over the next couple of years. Don Mackay, the new CEO, stepped down last week after 3 months in charge, and there's loads of different angles to that story in terms of who said what, who did what. Celtic are putting it down to inexperience. He's deleted everything about Celtic off his LinkedIn, off his Twitter. Everything is gone. So it was not a good separation by the club, and that is a worrying sign for me.
Yeah, and even that notwithstanding, right, and like that, a fairly big one to be notwithstanding, but even that notwithstanding, like it's difficult. You mentioned Edouard earlier on. Like you look at Jota last night, it struck me as he was like a Sterling-esque almost in terms of his stature and his movement. Incredible looking player. And Edouard comes in last week, comes off the bench, and he scored with his first touch, 2 goals. Suddenly at a club like Palace, now look at it, he's one game in, maybe he scores 8 goals over the course of the season, I don't know, but possibly he goes on to score a lot more than that, and maybe he attracts a bigger name. Jota has a brilliant season, and suddenly there's other clubs coming in for the men. Like that's going to be, it's not, I think it's always been an issue for Scottish clubs, but it feels particularly a big issue at the minute that, you know, those bigger names that are coming through, and you've mentioned some of them already, they're going to get fished out by the bigger clubs in England and elsewhere, and it's hard to create a sustainable model when that's always the case in the background.
Yeah, exactly. And this year was supposed to be the quote-unquote rebuild. So Celtic were supposed to bring in a director of football. That never happened. They were supposed to overhaul their scouting network. That never happened. Don Mackay came in as a new CEO, but now he's gone. And you're wondering who is doing the building of this. Because, I mean, Edouard's a prime example. Edouard went for roughly, give or take, 15 million. Edouard's a 25 million euro or pound player. But the reason he went for 15 million was because Celtic held on to him until he had 1 year left on his contract. Similar enough, you know, Kieran Tierney, they actually got good value for, but the likes of Mr. Dembele, who left the club a couple of years ago, exact same thing, leaving the players left with 1 year in the contract so they have all their power. It happened with Christopher Ayer as well, that went to Brentford, and they're doing themselves down a little bit because they should be getting higher fees for these players because they are better players than the clubs are paying for them. Like, Take Edouard, for example. He's going to go in and he's going to be a starter for Crystal Palace. Kieran Tierney went in and he's one of the best players at Arsenal. Virgil van Dijk went to Southampton and now he's the best defensive player in the world. You know, the Scottish League has a lot of talent, but the management of it does itself down a little bit. It sells itself short time after time after time. And if Celtic do want to be this sustainable model where they develop talent and sell them on, which that's what they are eventually, like that's what they're supposed to be, they need to have players coming in like a conveyor belt, and that is just not happening at the minute. You should not have to bring in 11 players in a transfer window and then still be short. You should already have those players in. You should have 3 or 4 players at your disposal if you're supposed to be a developing club. And Celtic do everything in their power to try show this image that they are a development club without actually doing what is necessary to be that type of club.
25 million doesn't necessarily make Edouard a top 4 player, but do you think that's where he ends up? Is he that good?
I don't necessarily feel he will be a top 6 player in the Premier League, but I do think he will eventually get a move to a club in Europe, perhaps a Lyon stature, maybe a little bit higher somewhere. It might not be France, it might be Germany, might be Premier League. I do think he's definitely good enough at the minute to be a top half striker. I'm not sure Crystal Palace what they're going to do once Eze is back, once they have all their players fit, how Patrick Vieira's puzzle is going to come together. It could be a very exciting team, or it could be a disastrous team. So I think that move will be the judge of what he really is. But I think if Moussa Dembele, who had a similar enough career to Edouard at Celtic, is an example. I mean, he went to Lyon, then he was at loan to Atletico Madrid last year, and now he's flying for Lyon again in the Champions League, or in the Europa League, sorry. And I think he's about that level. I don't know if he is the quality of striker that a Man City would be going for, or, you know, upper echelon super clubs. But I do think he is a top 6, top 8 striker, or he will get there eventually.
Right.
And just on that, like, we're looking at players of Dembele, you have Tierney, you have Edward. They've all gone on now and obviously Edward remains to be seen what he will do, but he started well. And like, people do talk about Scottish football, it's not that great of a standard. Is this maybe, I don't know, sort of a proof in itself that it is worthy?
No, well, like, I think people are going to have that opinion anyway. You know, they're not going to change their opinion. It's the same as some people's opinion on the League of Ireland. They don't actually watch it, so they just decide that it's terrible. And the Scottish League is one of them, like the League of Ireland in many ways, in good ways and bad. It's one of the most entertaining leagues to watch in the world. Not for the quality of football, because outside of the top 2, the quality is not there. That's something that nobody really denies. But for sheer entertainment value and the absolute nonsense that goes on off the pitch, the Scottish League is an incredibly interesting league to watch. And even for Irish players coming through, the likes of St Mirren are a really good club to watch at the minute, with Jamie McGrath developing really nicely there. And yeah, like, I just don't think people will ever give the Scottish League its fair dues. They didn't do it when Henrik Larsson and Chris Sutton were playing there. They're not going to do it when Kieran Tierney and Edouard's coming through. It's just something that's already there. It's a bit of snobbery from the Premier League, but we wouldn't expect anything else from the league, with Burnley and, you know, Newcastle absolutely pulling up trees down there.
It wouldn't be Enda Coll on OTB without a bit of a jab at the rest. Good man.
Cheers, lads.
Thanks a lot. Enda Coll on the line there, looking back on Celtic last night and how it came a little bit unstuck from the end, but Celtic fans may be a little bit positive, even all that notwithstanding. 7:09, Friday morning, you're watching OTB AM. We're going to talk rugby in just a couple of moments' time. First of all, just to let you know what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio over the course of the day, 1 o'clock, Ronnie Delaney is the subject of OTB Gold. It'll be live Friday night racing from 3 today. The Cultural Hall of Fame is The Wire. This week, and appropriate given sad events over the last couple of weeks. Eric Donovan is going to be the one that's entering The Wire into the OTB Culture Hall of Fame, and Catherine Switzer is the subject of OTB Gold from 6, and then Off the Ball live on your radio from 7 o'clock this evening. And by the way, the Snap on OTB is back to mark the return of the NFL season, and it's all brought to you in association with the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. Northwestern against Nebraska at the Aviva Stadium, Saturday, August 27th 2022. Stick it in your diaries. It's going to be a great weekend. You can check out their brand new website. It's collegefootballireland.com for all the details around that, and you can keep an eye out as well for the preview of this week's show. Cian Fahey's assessment as well of Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford. So that is available if you check out the OTB channels. That's all available up there, and comments coming into us as well. On the GAA earlier on, Daisha Dude says every fan in the country is used to junior, inter and senior at club level. Surely it would be easy to implement this at inter-county level. The only fear is that the junior and intermediate levels will be ignored and disrespected by the TV media and GAA HQ, as McDonagh Ring, Rackard, Mara Cups currently are in hurling. So that sort of tiered thing, I think. Daisha Dude, and thanks for the comment this morning, that most players and coaches and anybody who's involved sort of are fairly allergic to the idea of not being able to compete for Sam Maguire on some level as they kick off the season, and that's definitely why I prefer that model that allows for some qualifiers from all of those tiers to at least start off, no matter how diluted it might be, and in many cases totally diluted, but at least they start off the season with some capacity if they're good enough that year to compete for Sam Maguire. So look, I mean, I guess that's where that's at. Any more comments, do keep them coming into us this morning, but I think we're going to turn our attention now to rugby. Alan Quinlan is going to be with us in a couple of moments' time. Before Quinny, it's ads.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast? If not, here's some of what you've missed over the last week.
We still got beat at the end of the day. It still wasn't a result. I'm still hearing we're nearly there. We're so unlucky, but at some point that's got to turn into results. At some point you've got to say, well, we need that result.
First of all, his ability to do what needs to be done, crosses, saves. I mean, he was brilliant. Definitely humble lad. Doesn't not get carried away with it.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts, and download the OTB Sports app.
The Rams, like, I get the analogy, I understand the analogy. That's always been the allure of Matthew Stafford. But the selling point of Matthew Stafford in this transition to the Rams is, he's got a supporting cast he's never had before, as if he didn't have Calvin Johnson for 7 years, as if he didn't have a plethora of other weapons over the years. He's had very good receivers. Like guys like Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones just last year have left Detroit, and they were highly sought after players in free agency because of how good they are. So I understand the analogy. Yeah, he's got more books on the shelf. You've got more options. You can do all this. You can do all that. But every time you open one of those books, it's not always going to be what you expect it to be. And that's the problem. The problem with Stafford is he will make the incredible, difficult play that no one else can make. But then on the very next play, he'll throw the ball to the defender, and then he'll fall over himself and take a sack, or he'll misread the coverage completely to not see a wide open receiver, or he'll set his protection wrong, so he actually sells out his lineman. He's been so incredibly inconsistent over the length of his career, and because he's got this massive arm, because he comes from Georgia with the draft stock, because he's a pretty good athlete outside of just his arm strength as well, he's always been sold as this superstar guy who's a promising player who's held back by his franchise. And I just don't think that's ever been the case, because he's never been consistently good. The other side of it is, though, Sean McVay brings quarterbacks to a base level. Him and Kyle Shanahan are very similar, where they'll get the most out of what you give them, and anything extra after that is down to how good the quarterback is. So that's kind of what the way Peter King is looking at that, I would think. So maybe it's possible. I think what you can go back to is when the Rams made the Super Bowl against the Patriots, Goff couldn't really do anything and did very little in those games. So if you got those same level of performances from everyone else, and then Stafford was on a hot streak and he played well, a bit like Flacco did with the Ravens years and years ago, then you can buy into this as, oh wow, they could actually do something here. But I just don't. I'm so tired. It's been 10 years of selling Matthew Stafford as something that he's not. I can't do it anymore.
Golf Weekly, the best golf podcast on the planet.
If I can be a winning Ryder Cup captain away, so is a exceptionally big deal, and it adds a lot to my legacy. I have 3 guys that I felt have delivered consistently during the year, and there's an element of the Ryder Cup that, you want dependability.
There's Brooks questions, there's Bryson questions, and there's Justine Reed just tweeted X questions.
For the best Ryder Cup build-up, reaction and exclusive interviews, go to otbsports.com/Golf Weekly and become an official friend of the pod now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
13 minutes past 9, Friday morning, you're watching OTB AM, and we're with you till 10 this morning. John Giles on the way in just a little bit. In OTB AM brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with the new and improved razors. And some comments coming into us. Do keep them coming in, including one from Fergus Keogh. Good morning to you, Fergus. How am I supposed to get through Friday without the crappy quiz? We've given Owen a few days off. Sorry, Fergus, that's what comes with the territory. He's the only one. Despite it being a total shambles week in, week out, he is still the only one responsible for making it actually happen. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
Flying it, thanks. And first of the season, of course. Lots to get into. We're going to talk a little bit about Ulster's new signing, the United Rugby Championship obviously getting up and running very shortly. And I know you want to touch on Geordie Barrett's non-red card as well, and the possible implications of that. But we might start off with the rugby story that's dominated the headlines over the last week or so, Quinny. Every day almost a new headline. From the fallout from the Women's Interpros, an RFU investigation into the facilities now that Connacht were forced to train in. It feels it's like, if you step back from it, it's almost not a conversation that's been pursued in relation to the how poor the facilities were per se, rather than the bigger point that's to be made here about, and I see one of the headlines in one of the papers this morning saying, for a quote from one of the players from during the week saying that treat us better and we'll play better, and it feels like it kind of boils down to that.
Yeah, it's like it was unacceptable what happened. I just find it so difficult to comprehend that situation, that they would be subjected to those kind of facilities. What baffles me more is that if you look at the camogie and the ladies football teams in the last number of weeks, they've all been able to tug out in dressing rooms and play in Croke Park and prepare properly for matches, and for ladies rugby teams to be subjected to this situation when at either end of the ground in Energia Park there's 2 clubhouses, there's 2 sets of dressing rooms there. I'm just baffled as to why they wouldn't have been let use the dressing rooms in an orderly fashion and maybe kind of police that in a way that, you know, teams are not mixing together. There's at least 2 dressing rooms in each clubhouse at either end, probably more, 4 dressing rooms in each, I think, from my history of tugging out in Wesley or in Bechtov's changing facilities and whatever about putting pop-up tents outside in derelict areas where people are having to tug out or prepare outside. I think just why wouldn't they be let into dressing rooms? Why aren't they allowed to have a shower after the game? I don't think anyone from the HSC or any government officials would have been clamping down on that. They say it's because of the amateur status, but the camogie players and the GA players in both men's and women's are all amateur players as well, and they can use dressing rooms and showers. I just think it's shocking what happened. I know it won't happen again, and in fairness, all the ladies involved have spoken about it, and they've all said, look, it's not going to happen again, but it should never have happened. You know what I mean? It should never have happened in this situation, and it was shocking to see the way they were treated last weekend.
Yeah, I think the word elite is what they use to get around that sort of, is it amateur, is it professional, and you call it elite, and surely it fits under that banner. And I don't know, look, it does feel as if the chat about the facilities is just an avenue in to have a bigger conversation about attitudes and mentalities and stuff, and look, it will play out and we'll see what comes out of the RFU investigation. The big signing of the week, Quinny, it's a lot of positive response here from Ulster fans. Dwayne Vermeulen has Dwayne Vermeulen World Tour has landed itself in Belfast, and it will, at least when he wraps up with the South African team over the next few weeks. 35, obviously, that's the one sort of caveat maybe in all this, but do you just forget about all that stuff? He's a starting 8 for the box and that's good enough?
Yeah, he's one for the here and now, isn't he? It's not for the future, really. I think, obviously, when you bring in a player at that age, there's a couple of things you want immediately. You want impact. You want him to perform straight away in the big games, in European games, in knockout stages, in the league towards the end of the season. But you also want him to bring on younger players and inspire people around him. And, I probably experienced that. I don't think we ever signed anyone at that age in Munster, but we had guys coming towards the end of their career. Jim Williams is probably one that jumps out, where he's a bit of a veteran when he comes to us, plays brilliantly, but is a great leader, captain, kind of lifts people around him. John Langford, a few times, he signed twice for Munster. It's signing overseas players isn't just about, no matter what age they are, isn't about Adrian just getting performance out of them and then them jumping in the car and going back to wherever they're living and taking the wages and doing a good professional job. I think you want more out of them. You want them to, bring on academy guys. You want people to look at the way they train, prepare, their attitude, their mental strength. And he's an incredible amount of experience. So that will do Ulster the world of good. It's not a long-term situation because of his age. If you look at, and that's the only negative you can take out of it. But from an Ulster point,
go on. Yeah, what are they getting, Quinny? What sort of a player is he?
Well, from an Ulster point of view, they're getting an incredibly powerful, athletic, ball playing number 8, something they've lacked. We've spoken for a long time now about that little bit of physical grunt, that ability to dominate teams up front, to, maybe be on the front foot as regards the physical stakes. He's not going to solve all their problems. They've lacked ball carriers for a long, long time now, and it's probably 10 years we're speaking about this. Ulster, when they're on the front foot and they're retaining ball, they're very dangerous. They play with pace, tempo. They're a great side to watch. But if you get in amongst them, stop their maul, put pressure on the breakdown, physically take them on, that's where the question marks have arisen over the years. So someone like Duane Vermeulen, he's obviously his biggest strength is he's a ball carrier and he's an offloader and he can put people into little gaps and pockets. If Duane Vermeulen runs at you, if you're not on the money physically against him, he's going to knock you over. That in turn attracts people into to make those tackles to him. And he's going to give him the hard yards, the wet, mucky conditions throughout the winter. And he's a really powerful ball carrier, but he's someone who can break up mauls as well. He's so physical. He can. You watch him for South Africa, that desire to get in amongst opposition teams when they're trying to maul. So they're getting a great player here. Let's just really hope that he comes after the November internationals, that he's fresh and he's fit and he doesn't pick up any injuries, and they get a bit of luck with this guy, because it's an incredible signing. It's a brilliant signing, and it's exactly what they need. They need a lift up in Ulster. A lot of good young players coming through, a lot of talent that needs to be nurtured, minded, looked after in the next couple of years, and they'll have a big impact in Irish rugby. But like I say, the area there's always question marks and is up front, and that bit of power, that bit of aggression and that bit of physical presence that sometimes they lack.
About Quilly there, just the young lads coming through, and I think that's evident in Ulster. But I suppose with him coming in, how important is it, I suppose, that he does sort of develop them and sort of having that experienced head there? That can nearly be as important in the game. Yeah,
big time, Aisling. It's so important. You look at someone like Robert Balakoon, who is a great prospect, James Hume, Greg Jones, Matthew Ray, these guys who are probably just starting out in their professional careers. I know they've played for a year or two with Ulster, but they're guys who can lean on him for a little bit of experience. And just, it's amazing. The presence of someone like that in around your training group and in your dressing room can have a really positive influence, particularly if things are going wrong, and if they lose a couple of matches or if somebody makes a mistake. He's been through the mill for Mullen. He's, won a World Cup. He's performed consistently at test level. Was in Japan, standout player in Super Rugby when he played there, played in Toulon. So I think you can learn so much off guys like this, because he's an elite player who's played at the top level consistently, and nothing really phases him. I suppose when you're 18.5 stone and 6'5",
it helps.
It helps. It helps the situation. And but it's young players like that who he can, and I'm sure Ulster will try and use his experience. I'm sure he'll be vocal at team meetings. But he's going. The reality for Vermeulen here is he's gone into an Ulster side that domestically, in the league, they'll win 70-80% of their matches. In Europe, they'll be, getting into quarterfinals. They'll be thereabouts. It's just that lateral part of the competitions that they've struggled in the last couple of years. And maybe he'll be a bridge that'll maybe get him one step more. I'm not saying he's going to make him win trophies, but, they will get better this year as a group. The Ulster team, they've, shown a lot of promise, but consistency hasn't been one of them. So, people will probably say, well, what can he do vocally to improve other guys? But honestly, it's a massive part of improving the standards about the way they train, the attitudes, the mental strength, all that kind of stuff. And just his presence out in the field will give him a huge lift that guys can run off him and, replicate what he does and try and, there's a lot of good back rows there. Timony is a very aggressive player. Jordy Murphy, brilliant player over the years for Ireland, Leinster and Ulster. Greg Jones, very promising. Sean Reedy. So they've a lot of abrasive players, but it's that end product of being really kind of aggressive, ferocious against teams that, if you play Ulster, you'll fancy your chances in the last couple of years, taking them on up front and, mauling against them, running hard at them and physically dominating them. So he's not going to fix every problem they have, but I'm sure he'll improve things. And if they get a full team out in the field, with Henderson playing and Vermeulen at 8, Reedy, Timony, these guys, now they've 4 or 5 ball carriers that can really be pivotal for them. So he's a brilliant signing. Again, as we said at the start, it's a short-term situation, but if he plays well for Ulster for 2 years and brings them up to another level, well, it'll be well worth it.
Yeah, I wondered if all those names you mentioned, they take a seat now and he comes in and they could have done a Carberry. It might be a conversation we'll come back to again, Quinny, but they might have done a Carberry with like a Deegan, a Conan or a Doris. And look, I know that raises other questions for Leinster, who I'm certain wouldn't want to part with any of those, but the stocks are high. Come here, we've only a few minutes left, so I wanted to you wanted to touch on the Jordy Barrett red card from last week, which was pretty blatant. And I've seen the ruling and I've read the ruling, and it doesn't make a whole pile of sense to me, I have to say, but it's been rescinded.
Yeah, well, it was in the Australia game. It was 2 weeks, nearly 2 weeks now at this stage. They played Argentina last week, and he played in that game, Jordy Barrett. But there was, I've been thinking about this for the last couple of weeks. Sometimes it's very rare that you're going to get sent off and it be rescinded, and there's a blatant mistake now with the TMO and the time you have in the rugby field to adjudicate in these decisions. It does happen that things are missed and that after games players are cited and it should have been a red card and they receive a suspension, but it's kind of rare and it kind of makes a mockery of the laws really and it's not, Jordy Barrett is a phenomenal player, but he goes up to catch a high ball and propels himself through the air, and at the last minute extends out his foot and hits Corabetti straight in the face with his boot and gets a red card during the game. And then you go to a panel and they ruled that they rescinded and said it shouldn't have been a red card. We talk about what the Razzie Erasmus video and making life hard for referees and stuff like this. This is kind of up there as bad because it was a blatant red card.
Well, they say, Quinny,
it wasn't intentional.
The committee,
reckless.
Anybody check it out online, it's pretty reckless. His leg wasn't exactly straight out, but it was as straight as you can get, and certainly the studs were right in Corabetti's face. But the Judicial Committee chairman said that it was neither dangerous nor reckless. He legitimately went up in the air to collect a high ball, and when in trying to regain his balance on the downward trajectory, his boot inadvertently made contact with his opponent's head. You can't legitimately describe that as inadvertent when we talk about the responsibility of one player to another.
I don't agree with any of that, and it's blatant for you to see it, that he goes up and the knee propels up in the air and it looks like he has the ball, and then at the last minute he extends his foot out. That's nothing to do with regaining your balance.
No.
It's okay, it might be a technique that he's used to doing, and again, I don't think it was intentional. He didn't intentionally try to kick the player in the face, but it was reckless, and we need to discourage that. I think the pressure that Ian Foster and New Zealand Rugby put under the judicial Sanzar and these panels it has an influence on it, and the red card should have been left. He should have missed the game against New Zealand. I wouldn't say that he would have deserved any sort of a long ban for it, but it was a red card, and that being rescinded kind of makes a mockery of the laws. And we've seen several of those incidents here in the Northern Hemisphere in the last couple of years where there were red cards straight away and there was no questions asked and players received suspensions after it. How in God's name in 2021, when, you know, players red carded like that, and it's clear and obvious he boots the player in the face, whether he meant it or not, it's reckless, and the red card should have stood. So it just really frustrates me that. And again, people will probably say, well, you know, I'm nobody to talk maybe from the way I played, but the reality of it is people watch these, and kids watch it, and parents watch it, and we don't want to kind of allow, it's one of these bugbears. I don't know why you show your studs when you're jumping up for a ball. I've never done it, and I don't think there's a need for that. And I think it's something, again, that needs to come out of the game. But it just kind of smacks in the face of the laws that are there to get this overturned.
Yeah, I think as well what you said about the kids watching on. I don't believe it was intentional personally, but I do think you need to be more aware. And that was probably the main problem for me, that he came down knowing that there was a player there, you know, to be more aware of what you're doing, because, yeah, as people are watching on, you know, you don't want them picking up this sort of thing.
And it's not the first time that he's done this, you know, so he needs to stop doing that, because if he kicks the player and the studs go into his eye, and then the player loses an eye or something, well then, is it a red card? Does it stay? It's just, look, again, it's nothing personal. He's a wonderful player, but I just think it's crazy how this stuff can go on in the Southern Hemisphere, where I just don't think that would happen here in the Northern Hemisphere. Yeah. If a player accidentally, you know, an arm comes up and he gets a red card in a game, and there's mitigation that was missed or something, you know, that's fine. But look, there's so many moving parts in rugby nowadays. I know it frustrates people. The other thing that I just think is absolutely ludicrous is you're sent off and you can bring another player on after 20 minutes. It was trialled here last year in the Rainbow Cup. A red card is a red card, and that's the way it should be. And I hope to God that situation doesn't come in throughout the world. It's going on in the Rugby Championship at the moment now, and you know, I think it's a joke. It's just people giving out that a game of rugby is ruined. It's just the reality of it. If you know, these high tackles and stuff, of course, player getting sent off early and there's no intention in it, but bringing a player back on after 20 minutes is a joke to me.
Yeah, it's mad stuff, strong stuff. Quinny, we'll talk to you this day next week. I presume we'll be previewing the United Rugby Championship. Good man.
Cheers. Thanks, lads.
Thanks a lot. Alan Quinlan on the line there. Fairly strong stuff. Astradamus, that's pretty much it from us for this morning. Good stuff.
I hope that name sticks now.
We'll have to come up with a new slot for you. I mean, I don't know what the next what's the next line of predictions we're going to get from you, but that's a pretty good run to go with. We'll disregard the Celtic stuff from last night and just run with the good stuff.
I'll be working on behind the scenes now. My next predictions, you'll hear soon.
Yeah. Coming to an OTB AM near you soon. Thanks a million. Enjoy the weekend. That's Aisling O'Reilly with us this morning. We're with you right across the weekend as well, of course. Right through from 7 o'clock. We let you know earlier on obviously what's happening on Sports Radio over the day. 7 o'clock tonight on the radio. Damon Delaney, Shane Keegan and Dan McDonald, by the way, are going to be the Saturday football panel tomorrow. That's on News Talk Live. Premier League on Sunday as well. 2 o'clock West Ham against United. Brian Kerr, Stephen Doyle for that. 4:30 it's Tottenham against Chelsea. Keith Tracy and Nathan Murphy on duty for that. A reminder that OTB AM brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. And of course, we're back OTB AM Monday 7:30. For now, going to leave you Nathan chatting to John Giles.
All right, it is that time on a Thursday. John Giles is with us. Good evening, John.
Evening, Nathan.
So we said last Thursday that we would talk Cristiano Ronaldo, and it's been quite the week for Manchester United. He made his debut. He did what Cristiano Ronaldo does, scored a couple of goals. They swept Newcastle aside. Everything was absolutely buzzing around Old Trafford. And then the Champions League on Tuesday night, Manchester United end up getting beaten 2-1 by Young Boys with that bad error from Jesse Lingard laid on. What have you made of Cristiano Ronaldo's first week back?
Well, very good at Old Trafford. Didn't finish up so well the other night, as we know, Nathan. I thought Solskjaer made a bit of a mess of it at times when Bazaka was sent off, got the red card. I think Ronaldo should have gone off with him.
Why Ronaldo?
Well, they're down to 10 men, Nathan, and you need everybody running around as much as you can. Now, there's one thing about Ronaldo. There's two things. He scores great goals in the important matches, but he doesn't run around a lot. So I think it was a bad move by the manager at that particular time.
The obvious question then is, was it a bad move because he felt he couldn't take Cristiano Ronaldo off at that early stage of the game, or was it just he got it tactically wrong?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if he did it for the first reason you mentioned, that he didn't want to take him off, well, that's bad management. It doesn't matter who it is. I mean, it's just the circumstances. I mean, if there were, say, no score after 30 minutes and he wasn't playing very well, you wouldn't take him off because he's always going to score goals. But he's never going to work hard. I mean, it's one of the things that he does, always has done. He's not going to work hard for you when he doesn't have the ball. He's going to score the goals at the vital times, as we know. But this is when you're down to 10 men. So I think that was a bad move, not to take him off. And then he made, I think the manager made a few bad moves after that as well, with the substitutions he made.
Like, if he takes him off, is there the risk that Ronaldo throws his toys out of the pram a little bit?
Well, tough.
It's Cristiano Ronaldo.
It doesn't matter, Nathan. Once you sign Ronaldo to the team, the manager always has to be in charge. You can't run a team by saying, well, if I take him off, he's not going to be happy. No, your manager is the manager. He's the boss.
Yeah.
He has to be the boss, Nathan. Okay, a lot of players taken off in the match are not very happy. When I was with Don Reevy, I was taken off a couple of times. I wasn't happy. But in Ronaldo's case, I mean, that's what he is. You know, he's a great goal scorer. And we talked about it last week. I've never seen a player like him who didn't run around a lot. You think he's not in the game, and next thing he finished up scoring 2 goals, like he did last Saturday. But these were different circumstances. United are down to 10 men. And you need everybody really, really doing their stuff and running around and chasing around and doing more than they normally do. Ronaldo's not going to do that. I mean, he made some silly remarks afterwards, Solskjaer. Like he said, he took Fernandes off at the same time later on in the game as Ronaldo. And he says because the two of them were running around a lot. Well, it's one thing Ronaldo doesn't do is run around a lot, Nathan. Actually, when he was taken off, he wasn't too happy about it. But no players are.
Yeah.
But when you're the manager, Nathan, you can't say, oh, he's not going to be too happy if I take him off. That's tough.
But Cristiano Ronaldo's not most players, and
no, but he's a player, Nathan. Once you sign him on to go onto the team, you can't give anybody any special. There can't be anything special about them in that respect, especially when it comes to a situation where a man has been sent off. Obviously, if you sent off to bring somebody else on under normal circumstances, I can imagine Ronaldo going mad about it, and it would be a bad move by the manager because Ronaldo does what he does and he scores in the last minute and when he doesn't look like scoring. But this is a special situation. It's been a man sent off, so you have to make changes to the benefit of the team. I mean,
is Ronaldo not a special situation?
The manager, Nathan.
Sorry, John, go on again.
If Ferguson was still the manager, he'd have no problem doing that.
But
neither would Klopp, neither would any of the managers. That it's just the thing that you have to win matches. You're out there to win matches, and you have to do the best thing and make the best moves that you think is the best moves, regardless of who it is.
Has the dynamic changed though with Cristiano Ronaldo since his last time at Manchester United? He was one of the best players in the world then. Now he's arguably the biggest star in world football. That he is a special case, that for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to take Ronaldo off after half an hour, and if he does throw his toys out of the pram, that's a big story. That's a headache that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer really doesn't need.
Well, I think it's a bigger headache when you lose the match. You know, managers have to live with that. And you know, if he does throw his prams out, then tough. You just have to say, look, this is the game. This is what I have to do. And I think Ronaldo is professional enough, Nathan, to know, and especially if it's explained to him, this is the situation that we're in. It's very unusual, but this has to be done. I mean, Ronaldo is a special player for what he does, Nathan. We've spoken about it before, that he can do nothing for 87 minutes, as he done against us in the international, and then comes up scoring 2 goals. That's what he can do. But not when you're down to 10 men, and you need to get somebody on the pitch that can do the job that needs to be done when Ronaldo is off the pitch. I mean, he's not going to run around for you now. If you're down for 10 and he's up front on his own, he's not going to run around for you. That's a fact.
Yeah. But
and he wasn't doing that either. So a manager, like when you're a manager of a team, no matter who it is, you have the best players in the world in the team. And Ronaldo is certainly one of the best players in the world. But you have to do what's best in that moment to win the match. And if it means upsetting somebody, that's what you have to do.
But are there two different things happening here in that tactically, without question, it's the best thing to do to take Cristiano Ronaldo off in that stage. But for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as a manager, like, he doesn't want his authority being questioned. Like, Cristiano Ronaldo is bigger than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Manchester United. Despite the fact that Solskjaer is the manager, Cristiano Ronaldo is the biggest star at that club. That's a very different dynamic than is at pretty much any other club in world football. Maybe Paris Saint-Germain with Messi, but it's more about Ronaldo than it is about Solskjaer now at United.
Well, only because the papers make it that way, and he's a terrific player. But the manager is the most important person in the club, Nathan, regardless of how good the players may be. You have to a manager has to do things to use the players to his best ability for the benefit of the team. I mean, if it gets to the stage where the manager says, well, I can't take him off, I'm scared of that because this is what he's going to do. You're not going anywhere, Nathan. You're really not going anywhere because all the other players in the team say, well, the manager's not really doing his job.
The fact that Solskjaer
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you think the fact that Solskjaer didn't take him off suggests there could be more problems further down the line. Like, that scenario isn't going to happen too often in a match.
No.
But that actually Ronaldo will decide when Ronaldo plays as much as Solskjaer will decide when Ronaldo plays.
You mean when he's picking him?
When he's picking him. When he's picking him. And Ronaldo at his age, you would assume at times with the games will need to be rested at some stage.
Yeah, well, that's understandable. And it would be understandable for Ronaldo's from his point of view as well. Some matches he might not like it. But again, the manager's doing what's best for the club and the team. You know, I think he'd play in most matches, but there will be some matches that the manager can say, look, I'm not playing in this. It's for the good of the team, and it's for your benefit as well, because you're going to be fresh when you're going to be when you do play. But that's the manager's decision, and that's for the benefit of the team, Nathan, that he's making that decision. And again, if the player doesn't like it, then tough, because that's a reasonable attitude to take as a manager. I'm resting you, not dropping you. I'm resting you because you'll be more beneficial to us with leaving you out for a few matches. That's reasonable.
So do you think if, say, it was Edinson Cavani who was playing up front for Manchester United, that Solskjaer would have taken him off?
No.
Okay, so you don't think it was personality?
Because Cavani's a good worker.
Right.
He chases around. He gets after fullbacks. He gets after anybody. Ronaldo doesn't do that. Even in his any time he plays, he doesn't do that. He scores goals. But when you're down to 10 men, it's less likely that you're going to make chances for him to score goals. And he doesn't chase around. He took him off in the 75th minute, I think, of the game. And he took Fernandes off at the same time. And he said it's because the two of them were running around too much. Well, Fernandes does run around, but Ronaldo doesn't. So it shouldn't be an issue, really, Nathan. You know, he might not be happy about it, but that's, you know, the manager has to say, well, I'm doing what's best for the team, and that's it. He's not going to not play in the next match. If you explain to him, look, this is for the benefit of his team. You're not going to say you don't run around, but the way you play up front doesn't really suit us at all when we're down to 10 men. And it's only when we're down to 10 men that this is going to happen.
United have now some of the best attacking talent in the world. Ronaldo, Sancho, Fernandes, Pogba, Greenwood, Rashford to come back as well. Do they have a manager to match that talent?
I don't think so. I think we've spoken about Solskjaer before. I think he's a good lad.
Is he getting better?
I don't see him any getting better with what he did the other night. I mean, there was a good few mistakes he made the other night in what he did in the whole match, Nathan. You know, he brought somebody on it later on in the game. The other, can't think of his name now, the forward, Martial.
Yeah.
You know, like, don't forget, they scored in extra time. That's when they scored. Right? He brings Martial on, he takes Fred off, he takes somebody else off. They're all over the place. All over the place. Lingard comes on, but I think Lingard should have been on from the start. Well, not from the start, from when Ronaldo went on, because he's a young fella, he runs around and he does work hard.
Yeah.
But I think by the time they finished with the team that was on the team, I think Solskjaer made a mistake in thinking, well, there's only 2 or 3 minutes to go, or there's only this to go. We're going to hold out. He brought Varane on at half-time to put him in the back four. But I think, you see, where was Pogba? When you're, in my opinion, when you're trying to see the match out like that, Nathan, you've got to try and keep the ball. I mean, the ball is the most important thing on the pitch. And, like, Pogba didn't get a kick at the ball. Fernandes gets on the ball and he's taken off. Fred is taken off. Like, there was loads of things made because I think he thought, well, there's only a few minutes to go. There's always only a few minutes to go when something happens like that, or can happen like that. I think he made a lot of bad moves to lose that particular match. That's what I'm really trying to say.
So in that scenario where you lose a player in the first half and you're down to 10 men, I guess the best recent example of how you can respond is what Chelsea did, and that was right on half-time, and at the break Thomas Tuchel takes off Kai Havertz and he brings on Thiago Silva, and it's a bit of a backs to the wall job for Chelsea in the second half, but they still created opportunities against Liverpool and they sort of united together and there was a good team ethic. Is that what you do in that scenario? I don't know how often you found yourself in that scenario where you're down to 10 men for a long part of the game. Like, should you still be trying to win the game, or should you be happy enough just to shut up shop?
Well, usually you try. You're not really looking to win it, Nathan. Right? But I found, of course, when I played in the Leeds team, we were down to 10 men at times. But I found, anyway, playing in the game, it was Bremen and myself. You try to keep the ball as much as you can. You know, there's only one ball on the field. And the other thing is you put an extra defender on, which he did, therefore you're not going to have possession of the ball. You're going to be defending, Nathan. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas if you keep the ball a fair amount yourself, you don't have to defend as much. It's the best way of keeping the pressure off the defence. And that's why if you had Fernandes on the pitch and somebody else on the pitch, like they could... Pogba didn't do it. Actually, Pogba wasn't doing this from the start. I don't know what position he was playing in, but he was well ahead of anybody else in the middle of the field, Nathan. That was before. And he went down to 10 men.
Is there any other way of doing it? Because we've had this Manchester United conversation consistently for 18 months, and they haven't signed that midfielder. They haven't signed a Declan Rice who might be able to give them some sort of control. Is there another way that Manchester United, in that situation with the players they have, can do something differently, that's not the end result?
Well, they had enough good players on the pitch the other day to do better than they did. You had Pogba on the pitch, you had De Beek on the pitch, you had Fernandes on the pitch. You know what I mean? They start playing in a different way then than they do if they've got 11 men, particularly Fernandes, who gets forward an awful lot. You get him to sit back. He's a good player. He's not going to give the ball away. So that's I'm only giving you my opinion.
Yeah.
The best way to actually defend it when you've got 10 men. And you have to leave somebody up front as well, obviously. But somebody up front has really, really got to work much harder than he does in any normal match, because he's trying to close down they still have to do that. But if you watch the match the other night, there's no way Ronaldo is going to close down any of the defenders at all. Because that's what he does. You know, in matches, when he's in that situation, he doesn't get to kick the ball. But 9 times out of 10, he's going to score your goal.
Yeah.
But that wasn't going to happen the other night because it's down to not going to make him a goal, you know. But I just give you my opinion now how the best way when you go down to 10 men to protect the lead or to defend any way that you want to do, which is to keep the ball.
And in terms of the good stuff for Manchester United and the win against Newcastle and the first sighting of Ronaldo, Fernandes, Greenwood, Sancho, Pogba, all in the same team, how did you feel that worked in terms of still being able to get the best out of Bruno Fernandes with Cristiano Ronaldo in the side?
Oh, definitely, that can work with the 11 men. Actually, for the goal that Ronaldo scored the other night, I mean, it was an absolutely brilliant pass from Fernandes.
Yeah.
To do that, you know, that's what he has. That's what he's brilliant at, and what Ronaldo's brilliant at is sticking it in the back of the net. But once you go down to 10 men, then Fernandes has to take a different role, Nathan. To what he has to go deeper. So you've got a different team altogether. Then. But that's what I'd say. If Fernandes was in the middle of the field, along with Pogba, and that, they'd have enough between them to hold the ball, not give it away. But they need somebody up front too to hit these balls that they wouldn't normally be hitting, to chase after and put them under a bit of pressure to take the pressure off the defence. You know, Ronaldo doesn't do that. He's never going to do that.
There's been a big conversation around English football this week about the refereeing and letting it flow in the wake of the Harvey Elliott injury. And I guess it's been going on for probably a month since Jurgen Klopp and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer both came out and said that maybe teams were getting away with a bit more and that somebody was going to end up getting injured. What's your sense on letting the game flow, or should players get a bit more protection?
I think it's nonsense, Nathan. How do you let the net game flow? It's either a free kick or it's not a free kick. What they're saying from last year, there was too many goals stopped because they didn't let the game flow. Now, if you go back to last year, what were the referees thinking? Was it a free kick and I won't give it? Or it isn't a free kick and I will give it? How do you let the game flow? You know, it's either a free kick or it's not a free kick, Nathan. Now, I understand what they're saying. They want to see more goals, but I think it's causing more controversy because what they're saying is, well, that was a free kick, or in the referee's mind, that could have been a free kick, but I'm not giving it because I want the game to flow. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Last year is only last year. Now, the referees had to make a decision last year. Was it a free kick or was it not a free kick? It's the same situation this season, where the referees look at it and say, that's a free kick. No, but I'm not going to give a free kick because I'm going to let the game flow.
So
that's why the managers are going mad.
Yeah.
Okay, when it works for you, but when it works against you, I mean, there's been a few free kicks that are decisions I've seen. It was a definite free kick.
Right.
And the referee lets it flow and it goes in the back of the net. And everybody said, oh, isn't it great? We're scoring more goals. Or the referee are giving us more goals. Well, what about the manager? It's great when it goes for the manager. When it goes against the manager, there's murders about it. And I think it's caused more controversy now than it did last year, Nathan.
I presume then you look at it that the better, more creative, more technical players being protected is obviously a good thing.
Oh, no, I've no problem with the protection of the players. That's always... But that should have been there last year as well.
Yeah.
That's what I say. It's either a free kick last year or it's not. Whereas this year, it could be... The referee last year would have given a free kick and now he's not giving a free kick. It's madness, Nathan. Like in the referee's point of view, it's either a free kick or it's not a free kick. And if it's leading to... If he says, well, no, it's not a free kick because it leads to a goal... that's it. It's more freedom now, and it's given more goals, but it's still wrong. I just don't understand. We're going to let it flow business. It's either a free kick or it's not. It's either a foul or it's not a foul.
The game that injury happened in, then the Leeds-Liverpool game, we might talk about both those clubs. Firstly, Liverpool, a 3-0 win at Elland Road, would have been seen as a tough fixture, and then a dramatic game last night against AC Milan. Liverpool, not among most people's tips for the title because of the fact they hadn't made the big investment of United, City, Chelsea. But what they do have is pretty much their full squad back together. When you look at that 11 that Liverpool have, if they can keep everyone fit, if they can keep Van Dijk, Salah there for the full season, that's still a squad that can go all the way.
I think I think they're favourites to win the league.
Right.
I do.
Why?
Can't understand. I know what you're saying to start the season. Is it Man U? Is it Chelsea? Is it? I think they're all going to be contenders. But I didn't see Liverpool mentioned. You know, Liverpool's season last season was very, very bad. But that was a very unusual season with the amount of injuries they had, particularly with Van Dijk and players like that, that it was a bad season for them. Okay, they got into the Champions League at the end, but this is a fresh season. Now they have those players back. And what I've seen them so far, I mean, particularly last night, I thought they were brilliant last night. And, for example, I thought City were poor.
Yeah.
Last night, I thought City...
Despite scoring 6.
They won 6-3, Nathan.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it was a good performance at all. I thought the Liverpool performance was brilliant. To go 2-1 down and to come back in the manner in which they did. That's the Liverpool team of old, in my opinion. They were poor last season, but they're back again now, and they got all their players back. And I think people are looking back too much at last season for where they finished and the matches they lost. I don't think that's going to happen to them this year at all.
What about the goals they conceded? Because that today was one of the question marks of no Van Dijk in the centre. Again, questions about Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's just so brilliant going forward, and maybe that is enough, but still some questions about him defensively. Where do you stand on Alexander-Arnold now? I'm
still the same, Nathan. If you do have a chance to look at the 2 goals they conceded, he was totally out of position. Totally out of position. Now, he's brilliant. Absolutely. His distribution of the ball is terrific. He made the goal. I know it was an OG in the end, but he went and that. And that's what he does, right? But he's a full-back, Nathan. And my take on it is that full-backs, first of all, defend. And they come in to attack, and they help in that particular way. I'd never swap what's for Robertson, for example, who makes a goal now and again, but he's a really, really good defender. He's never caught out defending. Now, Klopp obviously encourages Alexander to do it. Yeah. So it's a bit of a gamble. Is he going to score and make as many goals or more goals than he's at fault for, or could be at fault for, when he's defending?
And he is. It's a risk worth taking, you'd have to imagine.
I don't think so.
No?
No, I wouldn't take it.
Klopp seems to think it is.
Who?
Jurgen Klopp seems to think it is.
That's his opinion. And he's the manager. I'm giving you my opinion. Yeah. I think it can be. I think both can be done. I think both can be done. There'll be slightly less goals made. There would be slightly less goals made. But he made a goal last night. But I think if you look at the goal, I think he was a lot at fault for the 2 goals they scored. I mean, he was outside the box when they were scoring, you know, from the left side of the pitch.
What about Fabinho's performances? Obviously, we saw him at time. As a midfielder, how do you rate Fabinho?
I think he's good. I don't think he's ever going to be great, but I think he's a good defensive midfield player, and he can get on the ball as well. He doesn't just sit back. I think he's a good all-round player. I wouldn't regard him as a creative player, but he's okay.
Okay.
But he's a good all-round player. He helps the team. He's good for the team, I think. I mean, Liverpool are good. I mean, they've got a good balance all round. I mean, the Alexander thing is quite... I think people have different opinions on it, you know. But I always believe that fullbacks should, mostly for defending. See, that's where they suffered last year, Nathan. When he's doing his stuff going forward, he's taking a chance.
Yeah.
He's taking a chance. Now, last year when they weren't playing well, they really suffered in that situation. Because he wasn't making goals last year because the team weren't playing well. Now that they're playing well again, he's taken that chance. Like, I always felt with the defenders, particularly, well, fullbacks particularly, you've always look at the side. If I go there, is it putting us at risk? Right? And then you have to be careful all the time. Forwards, it's a different thing. The centre forward has to take the chance. It's going to happen for me. This is going to happen for me. This is going to happen to me. Defenders are the opposite. This is not going to happen. I have to get into a position to defend. Now, what happens with Liverpool now when they're playing well again, Alexander gets the ball now most of the time than he did last year, Nathan.
Mm.
But it's a gamble. I think it's a gamble that's not necessary. I think Liverpool has scored enough goals. But I think as a team now, I think they're back to where they were in their attitude and their approach to it. I thought they were absolutely brilliant last night to come back in that game. And they're back, I think, to the Liverpool team that we saw, not last season, but the season before. And I think they're well in the running to win the Premiership.
And just briefly, John, any worries about Leeds?
Bit concerned, Nathan. Sorry, I just want to go back on one little thing. Yeah. The Harvey Elliott situation. Yeah. I think the kid has been absolutely brilliant. You know, he put it in the paper last week, not to blame the lad Pascal's strike. He said, sorry, they got it wrong. This was the appeal. And I think they got it wrong. I think it's been outrageous that, he got a red card for what happened. I don't think he meant to do it at all. And to not even have the appeal, Nathan. But the kid himself is great. I think he's a great kid. I wish him all the best to get well. To say what he said, he hasn't blamed him in any way whatsoever. He said it's wrong. And for a kid to have an injury like that to do, I think it shows what a really good character he is. Yeah,
certainly does. So you're a little bit worried about Leeds. Early days, though.
Well, you might get the second season syndrome, Nathan. You know, again, I think we might have spoken about before. I know I was promoted with Leeds years and years ago, and most of the lads had never played in the first division before. It was a young team, and there's a worry that's very, very good for you as a team when you come up, Nathan, in the first season. You really have to go. We really have to do this. We really have to do that to compete against this team. Now, we did very well in the first season. Actually, we finished second. I think we finished fifth or sixth the next season.
Right.
And look at Sheffield United. It happens a lot. You know, when you come up, you're scared, Nathan. You're scared. We've got Arsenal away. We've got Manchester United and home and all that. You know, you're really scared, and it's good to be scared in that particular way. But once you've done it, right, like Sheffield United did, finished whatever they did, 7th, 8th in the league, right? They know, well, we don't have to be as worried about it as much. We don't have to give as much. And I think that's when you fail, in that particular. And I hope, and keep my fingers crossed, it doesn't happen to Leeds. But because Liverpool totally outplayed them, killed them actually last week. So it's fingers crossed for them.
All right, we'll talk a lot more about Leeds over the next few weeks. John, great stuff as always. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan.
Mind yourself.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best